Welcome in, everybody, to Tour Life. We've got a fun episode today. We're talking Simon Lizotte hot takes. We've got Eagle back in the winner's circle and Jennifer Allen taking down her first big win of her career, essentially. And hopefully we'll have her come on as well. We'll see. That's kind of TBD. We will be having Simon come on. Eagle won't be able to make it with us. He did say rain check, so hopefully we'll get him on the podcast at some point. Me and Yuli are in the same hotel, probably like 50 feet away from one another. However, we're not in the same room because of the whole microphone situation. Yuli, how's it going here? How's the Wi-Fi first off?
Well, it's good. I'm hooked up to my personal hotspot because the Wi-Fi is currently down in the hotel, which is just kind of our luck.
Yeah, I mean, this is my second hotel this week. I had to get rid of my first hotel because that was just a no-go. And I thought this one would be much better. No, it's not. So if I do cut out, Yuli will run the show while I set up my hotspot with my phone, and we'll go that way. Yeah. It's looking like we might need to get into this hotspot T-Mobile situation for future. I mean, we're in 2023. You would think every hotel you would stay at would have workable Wi-Fi. No.
I feel like it's just our MO. It's either the microphones aren't working, the Wi-Fi doesn't work. Crackle.
Something. With that being said, though, we do have a sponsor for tonight. With all the complications that we have to deal with, we do have a sponsor. Big shout out to Manscaped. Summer's coming. Are you ready to unveil your beach bod? Yuli, are you ready to unveil your beach bod?
Not quite, buddy. Okay. Not quite.
Well, Manscaped is here to help you to ensure your body is ready for the wild with their game-changing full-body grooming and hygiene products. Don't be the guy at the beach with Austin Powers chest hair. It's time to get ready for hot guy summer by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with the code TOURLIFE. Whether you're trimming your chest or the treasure chest in your pants, wow, this is the best trimmer on the market. Their trimmer features a ceramic blade designed to cut hair on loose skin and to reduce grooming accidents thanks to advanced skin-safe technology. You also get 2 free gifts, the Shed Travel Bag and the patented high-performance reduced chafing Manscaped boxers. I have worn the boxers before. Very nice. Very nice boxers. Having the right tools for grooming is essential. Do yourself a favor and always use the right tools for the job. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code TOURLIFE at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code TOURLIFE at manscaped.com. Thanks so much for Manscaped for sponsoring Tour Life. So go help them out as well, because if they support us, we want you guys to support them as well. Manscaped. We might be having a package shipped your way too from Manscaped. So in the next couple of weeks, I'm curious to see what you like and whatnot. I have used their products before. Like I said, I use their boxers. I've also used the Lawnmower 4.0, which has like a light on it, which is super crucial if you kind of have bad lighting in your bathroom. But yeah, great products. And again, thanks to Manscaped for sponsoring this podcast. All right. Last week I went through, I said, you know what, Yuli? I said, we have a crazy, awesome fan base on the YouTubes and on the podcast platforms for Tour Life. I said, it is time Tour Life gets its own social media platforms. So if you did not know, we now are on Twitter. Silas will pull it up. We now have a Twitter account, TourLife_pod on Twitter, where we'll be posting not only like clips from the show, but also what guests we might be having coming on. We might be having polls. We'll interact there as much as we can. I'm not sure if Silas can pull it up. There it is. What are we at right now, Silas? How many is that? Are we at 300 yet? 294. So make sure you go over, check out our Twitter. We also are on Instagram as well. Our Instagram handle is tourlife_podcast. Here, you're going to mostly see clips from the show. So if you weren't able to catch the entire show, or maybe the interview, it was getting a little bit too long, you had to go to bed, you can go on there and see some of the best clips and stuff from there as well. We're on Facebook at Tour Life Podcast on Facebook. And we're also on TikTok. Now, hopefully Silas can pull up the TikTok We're at Tour Life Podcast on TikTok. We have 3 followers. One of them being myself, another one being Ezra, because I literally was like, Ezra, you need to follow us immediately right now on TikTok because we only have 2 followers. If you have a TikTok, make sure you go follow Tour Life Podcast. I don't know if we can get that up there or any of the other Facebook or Instagrams potentially. Silas, how's that looking? No bueno? Okay. All right. Well, Silas will pop those up on socials here for you guys to check out. But with that being said, also thanks to all our channel members. It's very cool going through the comments and seeing the little badges next to your name, and obviously in the live chat here too. We just had Donnie Harden, best disc golf show by far. Thank you, Donnie. We appreciate it. If you're not a member of the Tour Life crew, that's what we call our members here on YouTube. Check it out. Click the join button right under the YouTube thing. You get a cool little badge. Your comments basically get highlighted. All right, there's our Tour Life Podcast. Are we still at 3 followers?
It looks like it. But 21 likes. That's solid.
That's not bad. We're gonna push
for having only 3.
Let's see if we can get some double digit followers on our Tour Life Podcast TikTok. Could you imagine, Yuli, if we get TikTok famous for Tour Life? I couldn't either. It could be incredible. I think one of the issues that we have right now is all of our clips are not of us. So hopefully this podcast we just didn't say anything, I guess, of importance last podcast. It was all of our guests. So hopefully this week we can say something of importance and get some of our own clips on there. Because right now it's literally all of Paige and Nate Sexton, which is not
some
that
hot
bad.
takes from the boys. I think we could do it.
We might have to spit some facts here at the end of the show and see what we got.
All right. I'm in.
So thank you guys. Make sure you go check out our socials. Also, thanks so much to all of our channel members as well. All right. That's pretty much all I have with that. We can get into the show now. Beaver State Fling went down last week. We are currently like 2 hours north, and then we're actually going to head back down to the Portland area for the Portland Open. So we've got like 3 tournaments, 3 weeks in a row, all in a very small little spot. But the Beaver State Fling had some of the more there were some interesting things that went down, and we'll get into those very shortly here. But I kind of want to just talk real quickly about a story that happened to me. And then Yuli, if you have anything, this is the only important thing I have that went down for me. So if you have anything, please let me know. Hole 17, that was like my opinion, one of the better holes on the course. It made you have to really think what you were going to do for your second shot and what you were going to do for your third shot.
My interesting thing happened on 17 as well. So you go, then I'll go.
Heck yeah. Okay. So how hole 17 works is it's the old genius hole tee shot. So we're up super high. We've got trees on our left, trees on our right, and we're basically throwing a big tee shot down straight that then fades over to the left. There's a street that's just left of the fairway that's OB, but then on the other side of the street now we've basically combined those 2 holes to create this incredible par 5. So you basically want to throw your first shot pretty far, try to get as left as possible with staying in bounds. Then you're going to throw your second shot up and over, and then you throw onto this small little island that's surrounded by pavement. Essentially, that's all OB. Great designed hole. Love it. All the vendors and staff were parked in the parking lot that was behind the green.
Yeah.
The way to get in and out of the actual course was on the street that ran through this hole. So essentially, if you were one of the vendors or whatnot, you couldn't really leave without getting in the way of people playing that hole. What I was told was vendors and stuff were basically told like, hey, once you're kind of here, you're here. We don't really want to have cars going up and down the road. That hole also, because of just the way it was set up, that hole also had a huge backup. So when we got up to the hole, I think it was like Jake Hebenheimer was in front of me, and he just rips this thing on hyzer, gets all the way over to the left-hand side of the fairway, over the road, left.
Oh,
so
wow.
now he has like a really easy shot. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that's actually doable. Me and Ezra tried it like once in practice, didn't do it. But when you see someone do it, you start thinking like, oh, okay, that's not bad. My round at the time wasn't the greatest. I had kind of made a huge par stretch leading up to it. So I was in that like aggressive mode of where it's like, okay,
Yeah.
I gotta do something here. So we sat up on the tee box for a very long time, waiting for them to get out of the way. We get the green flag. So I'm like, all right, my turn to go. I launch my drive to try to get on the other side like Heimenheimer does. The disc is coming down, hits the road, so it's going to get a big flare skip onto the other side. Well, unbeknownst to me, there is a van sitting right there. I obviously didn't see it because you can't really see it from the tee. One of the people I was playing with was like, "Oh my god, dude, you just hit a van." I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, there's just a van in the road." I'm like, "Okay." So I was like, I gotta talk to these spotters. I gotta see what the heck happened. Long story short, it wasn't really the spotter's fault. It was the one vendor that wasn't really a part of the Disc Golf Pro Tour. I guess it was like a local tea company or something that like last minute or something decided to come out. So they were just, ditching early, not really following the rules. And they just happened to stop. I don't know why they stopped. They just happened to stop in the one spot you can't stop in. So I had a funny little comment along the lines of like, well, it's a good thing we're, this one shot is just going to cost me, $25 and not, $25,000 because that would have hurt a little bit more. But yeah, that was one of the more unfortunate things that have ever happened to me, where a car just stops right in the road because they were driving. Apparently when I was getting ready to throw it, they started driving and then they just stopped in the one spot that you just can't stop at.
That's one of the problems with having what I feel like what they need to do with the course is have all that stuff over there. There's just no parking over there for vendors. They need to move the vending to the back side of the course and then shuttle people to hole one or whatever. I mean, it would make more sense, I feel like, because you can't be having cars go up and down. And there's a lot of cars even early coming up and down for, what is it? 16.
The hole right before 16. Yeah,
16. So you're having to wait for cars to go. I mean, I guess that's why it's a silver series, honestly. Okay. That's awful. You should never hit a car that's stopped in the road.
Yeah.
But it only costs you $25. This is what happened to me on 17. I won't say the round, and I won't say who this was, but this is what happened to me. I throw my shot down there. It's on the side of the hill, right? So super awkward run up.
Yep.
I want to hear what your take is on this. I throw my shot, step on my disc, throw it straight left into a tree branch, fall straight down. And I say, well, that was a foot fault, right? Because I just completely stepped on my disc.
Okay.
Somebody else on the card then goes, yeah, it was. And then I'm like, okay, whatever. I pick up my disc and I start walking, and he's like, that was definitely a foot fault. I'm like, yes, I know that because I said it was. I then finish the hole, right? I take par, go over to the next thing, to the bench, and I sit down, and I'm like, they ask me what I got, and I'm like, I got a 5. And the person says, well, you got a 6. I said, I seconded the foot fault. And I'm like, I know you said that I did it, but there wasn't a time where he was like, or this person or anybody was like, okay, I second that. That's going to be a penalty stroke. We're moving forward. Which I feel like needs to happen right there. It shouldn't happen at the end of the hole.
Yeah, I agree.
I believe that's the way that the rule is that it has to be seconded. You can't just be like, yep, that was definitely a foot fault. Move along. I take par. So I'm sitting on the bench and I'm like, I definitely did it. I deserve the stroke because he did second it. But he really didn't second it. He just said that I did it. You get what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's a weird one for sure, especially because you called it, and I feel like had you not said anything,
it wouldn't have been called.
Yeah, and that's, let's be honest, the foot faulting situation quite possible. They might need to make a new rule because.
Yes. So let me
Because
finish.
what am I? Yeah, go ahead.
So that I can give you my take. This is the way that I take from it. I follow the rules. I called myself on the foot fault.
Mm-hmm.
I called it without trying to give myself a stroke. I'm going to be honest. I wasn't like, I foot faulted, stroke me. Because my take on the rule is, it is there to make sure that you're policing yourself or the card for a certain area. That's why you get the certain area behind your disc that is whatever, 12 inches by 12 inches.
Mm-hmm.
It is there so that you don't, in my opinion, it is there so you don't go above your lie by a bunch, behind your lie by a bunch, or the big one is side to side.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next thing is, I've never seen anybody get stroked for it. And I've been playing a long time. I think I might have seen it one time, but it was like on a Mando to where the guy was going way over here and he didn't even really know. We called him on it. The next hole, he did the same thing. Back in the day, you got to just rethrow, no penalty.
Yeah, the rethrow was a weird one.
So there was no stroke. But this is my problem with the rule. And this has nothing to do with the player. Completely in the right to be able to call the rules the way he sees fit, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the problem with this rule is there is every single player within the last 2 weeks, I bet, has foot faulted. I bet in the last 2 tournaments, every single player.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that's some of the pushback that I'll get is like, no, you break the rules, you blah, 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 blah. It's like, no, that's not true, because now say a player is a person who calls rules. I know going into the round that that person is doing that. I'm going to be a little more aware. And this is weird because I also know what's being thought out there is, no, you just have to follow the rules. That's it. Yes, we do that. But this is such a tough one because everybody foot faults from time to time on accident. The mini moves all the time.
I would say majority of the time too, you don't realize you foot faulted because you're obviously not looking at your foot when you're throwing. And after you throw, a lot of times your foot will, pivot or slide or whatever it will be. So then you like look down and you're like, oh, I'm good. When in fact you were a foot and a half behind your disc, right? It's a very, this is why I was saying, like, I think the rule needs to be adjusted in some way, because when you're just in the middle of the fairway, let's say, is it really that big of an advantage to be just outside that, it's that piece of paper behind the disc? Is it really that much of an advantage being just outside? Now, obviously there is a skill level to hit that piece of paper when you throw. I'm not disagreeing with that.
Agreed.
But the way it currently is right now, and it would just get called all the time. And I don't know if that is.
But it doesn't.
It doesn't. But if everyone started to, and also let's be real. Do I need to be standing that close? Like, what's more important? What, I guess too, like to the entertainment, to the product, is it more important for me to be standing next to the person that's about to throw, staring at his footwork, his feet, to make sure he doesn't foot fault? Or should I be standing next to my disc so that way when he's done throwing, I can throw immediately and there's not this big gap? And we, because let's be honest, the rounds out there were not fast. I mean, they were 3.5 hour plus rounds, and we're not playing a massive course. That was not a big course at all. Yeah. 3.5 hours to throw the disc like 50 times. That's so bad. That's really not good. So pace of play, like getting the round started and finished. I think to myself, like, why, the number one reason why people don't watch live is they always tell you, well, I don't have 12 hours on the weekend to watch. So it's like, man, is there a way for us to have lead card play the round in 2 hours? That is so much more digestible, a 2 hour live round, than a 3.5 to 4 hours. Yeah, I think that obviously would solve the problem for sure. But yeah, I mean, it's the rules thing's a weird one. It's going to get even more weird when we start seeing more on coverage about it. I kind of ran into a couple issues with like spotters in blind spots saying like where discs went out of bounds where we couldn't actually see, and then the player arguing that spot wasn't correct. And it puts us in a really weird spot of where it's just like, this guy's standing right here. We're basically having to tell this guy that has the best point of view, you're lying.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's another one that's tough, but yeah, I don't know.
Are you somebody who polices the card and would call a foot fault if they stepped on the disc?
I would say it depends, which is bad. It shouldn't depend. You should call it every time.
And that's what my point was to the player is, listen, if we're going to call this, and I called it on myself. Let's remember that. It wasn't a point of like, hey guys, I foot faulted, I deserve a stroke. I was pointing out that I foot faulted and it was horrible. It was a blatant foot fault. My disc went sideways. But the only problem I have with it is said people who call these things, are they doing it all the time? And my point also is, it doesn't matter if I step completely on my disc or if I barely step on it. A foot fault's a foot fault. So if said player is going to call it if I step on the disc completely, you got to call it when I barely do it.
Yeah. No, you're right. No, it's one of those where we all need to either call it or we all need to not. That's when it's
and it was a bummer because
are doing it.
Because I ended up missing cash by one stroke this weekend. That's one stroke. But I did it. I deserve the penalty stroke. I also talked to the player afterwards, after the tournament was done. And I was like, hey, dude, there's no hard feelings. I promise you, this is my fault. I did it. I deserve the stroke. End of story.
I think I
don't have a problem with that happening. I have a problem with the whole situation of the rule.
And I think really the rules and enforcing the rules won't really pick up to where they need to be at like the highest level until players aren't traveling together, living together, being around each other. And then it's also just like known of like, because I can just see how some players are like, well, I don't want to call it on them because I don't want them to get mad at me. And then I could also see players get stuff called on them and they get mad at people. So I don't know. I don't know. It's a tough situation. So, all right, let's look at the scoreboard real quick. We can hopefully pull that up, Silas, and kind of run down. We'll run through FPO quickly. Like I said, Jen Allen might be joining us, so I do have quite a few questions about her in her round. So we'll run through kind of FPO right now, and then maybe get a little bit more into it if Jen does join later on. So you have Jennifer Allen taking it down at 23 under par. Her performance, her performance was very impressive. She went second in parked at 17%. She was first in C1 and reg at 61%, first in C2 and reg at 74%, and first in birdies at 48%. She was throwing the crap out of the disc. Again, it's kind of tough on courses like this where the layouts are so different, where I can't really speak too much about it. I'm guessing most of the shots are still backhand like it was for MPO, but I can't speak too much about it. It did look like distance probably was a little bit more important maybe on the FPO side than it was on the MPO side, which obviously will favor her game. But she putted really well too. The few times I was able to tune in and watch some of the live, she was putting really, really well. And I mean, obviously confidently enough on hole 18, she had a 25-foot putt that she didn't have to make to win. She could have laid up and tapped in. She went for it, made it, cashed in her birdie. So like a very, very impressive tournament. And I mean, how much pressure do you think, because this was one of the questions I want to ask her, how much pressure do you think she had to win, being in the lead and acing the first hole of the tournament? Like, is she just like, what has that happened to you before? Have you ever aced the first hole of any tournament?
I have, but I wasn't in the lead.
Okay.
I feel like it can go two ways. It can be like, however your mind processes it, it can be like, okay, I've aced, because she birdied the next 4 holes too.
Yeah.
She went ace, birdie, birdie, birdie. And now you have a little lead. Now it is, do I go into protection mode or am I just on fire? And I feel like because of the performance that she had, it was the latter, to where she was just like, no, I'm kind of like, nobody's going to catch me today. Like, I just got it. She's playing with a lot of confidence. I watched a little bit of it myself, and I think her biggest downfall, as far as not getting wins before, because she does throw really good shots and she has a lot of distance, is the putter. Like, the putter breaks down from time to time, especially under pressure. From the past, that's what I've seen. You were right. She didn't back down. She made a lot of putts. I remember a certain part of the round, it was like the back 9-ish. She had a really tricky putt, like under this branch, and I remember thinking Holland was parked, about to get a stroke if she doesn't make this, and she just cashed it. And I was like, okay, like, now we got a battle. And it's one of those things where you're just kind of waiting. We've seen this in the FPO field before, to where certain players, they don't putt well under pressure. They just don't. And so you get to the end of the round and they have those 20 footers, even like 18 footers. And I feel the pressure from the viewer standpoint of being like, I don't know,
Yeah. And she wasn't handed this tournament, right? Like, obviously her and Holland went back and forth. Now, obviously they didn't really have anyone pressing for second. Like, it was a massive gap. There was a 10-stroke gap between Holland and Maria for second and third, but it wasn't like she was just out in front and was just trying to stay alive, right?
Yeah.
She had Holland pressing her throughout the entire round. And like you were saying, like, those putts, if they're nervy at the beginning, they get more and more as it goes on. And it wasn't like she was like, oh, I can just, if I miss this, it's going to be a fine, no worries. I mean, it was a very impressive performance. Now, obviously on the FPO side, the field this week wasn't nearly as strong, and I can see those arguments. But again, you have to beat the people that are there. That's all you can do. Whoever shows up, those are the people that you have to beat. And she was able to go out and still take down a W over some top players. Obviously Paige wasn't there, Kristen wasn't there, but there was a lot of top players still there. And she dominated. It wasn't like she just won. Yeah. She beat Holland by 2. And then, like I said, the next closest was Maria at 12 back. So an absolute dominant performance from her. And getting SportsCenter top 10 too, after that must be just like the icing on the cake to be able to get on that, And are we going to see this trend of where, we don't really see it right now on the MPO side, right? All the best players, as far as I know, as of right now, are like sub 32. Maybe you can even go lower with Ricky and Paul kind of not being really in the equation that much this year. Like, we're looking at the best MPO players being under 25, 26, 27. Yeah. And now all of a sudden you have Jennifer Allen, who is playing in I believe like a World Championship Masters event this week. Yeah. And then you have Owen Scoggins, who also can be playing Masters at the top, like near the top of like a lot of leaderboards this year. Is this kind of a trend that we might see in the FPO division, of where as women kind of go throughout their career, they can still compete much, much longer at a higher level than MPO?
Well, right now, I mean, that's proven fact. What was it? I think 2 years or 3 years ago when Juliana came back on, she jumped right back in and was in contention a lot of times. Just like very fast. And I remember for years and years and years, Des and Elaine were very competitive well into their 40s. And so it is something that we see in the FPO division. But the one thing that we're not seeing as much in the FPO division, because there's just not as many FPO players, period, is the young generation of, Carter shoots a 12 under. He's 15.
Yeah.
Our best player is, or arguably our best player from time to time is Gannon, and he's 17 or 18.
Why do you think that is? Why don't you think there is that same youth in the FPO division? Just simply they're just not getting into it at a young age like the MPO side is? Like not as many girls are playing disc golf as there are guys, or do girls just need a little bit more time to develop?
No, I think it's like anything. If you look across the board, you're going to see more boys playing sports than females at an early age. I mean, I could be wrong about that. I don't think I would be, though, as far as just how many Little League players are there and how many girls want to play Little League. You know what I mean?
It's definitely more in the cultural side of boys playing sports at a young age and girls not. It's definitely pushed more. I don't know if push is the right word, but it definitely, I mean, there are obviously things like Title IX that are put in place simply to make sure that there are the same amount of female teams and sports that are getting funded on the college level. Like there are things in place to try to promote women's sports, but I mean, it's not. But
we have none of that in disc golf, so it's got to be an organic growth. And
the only thing I would say though that we do have in disc golf is there isn't a huge right now. If you got into the MPO side, there is a huge gap. Not a huge gap. Sorry, there is a bunch of people locked in at the top. So you just jumping in, being oh, I'm just gonna be a top 10 player. That would be very tough on the MPO side. On the FPO side,
hey, you tried to do that though. I think you did pretty good.
Yeah, but I also did have a lot of experience behind me throwing frisbees a little bit. It can happen. It can happen. But it's easier on the FPO side right now because the field's not as deep is what I was trying to get at.
Yes, but I mean, if you take a Mike Trout and you give him a disc, he's going to figure it out.
Maybe
if he
maybe.
Did, I mean, I don't think it's a maybe. I think that he would be able to listen. Disc golf is one of the easier things as far as sports to learn because your size isn't that big. The form is the easiest form to learn and to repeat out of all the sports because you're not trying to hit a 95-mile-an-hour fastball.
I would agree. The only thing I would disagree is the forehand. The forehand is a very uncommon movement that takes time unless you're like a baseball pitcher or have some sort of tennis background. If you don't have those backgrounds, the forehand, I mean, look at it. There's people that have been playing disc golf forever and they do not have good forehands. Why? It's not an easy. That's the only thing I would disagree with. I think the backhand. I would agree with you on the backhand. The forehand.
No, I'm just saying across sports, it would be the easier one to learn. To be at a high level. Golf, forget about it. There's so many intricacies as far as the swing, and then you're trying to hit a little ball, and you're trying to get in a little hole. It's not even in the same realm.
Yeah, I feel like right now after, playing just over 3 years of disc golf, I don't feel like there's that much on the mental or learning side that's holding me back. There was a lot in the first year or two, but right now I don't feel like I'm not being able to step up to the hole and make the right decision of what the shot's asking, or when I'm scrambling to figure out oh, I can throw this disc and it'll do this. I feel like I have all that knowledge now. In golf, I would I would still, even having a decent golf background, I would still have a lot to learn. So I agree with you. I think that is, I was listening to a podcast earlier today when they were talking about like just enjoyable things to watch during the summer months. And someone had brought up cornhole, and someone immediately was like, no, what the heck? That's so boring to watch. They never miss. And then they brought up like what it would be similar to watching like Steph Curry shoot free throws. It would just kind of be boring because they just don't miss. I think sometimes disc golf has some of that. Not to the people, and again, the people watching this right now, they're all going to disagree with me. Be like, what are you talking about? Disc golf's awesome. When you're in the sport and you love the sport, I think a lot of times you are blinded to some of the issues or some of the things that might not really catch on with people outside the sport. So if you can remove yourself from just the love of the sport and you think about it, I think that might be one of the issues causing maybe some people not to watch disc golf or think disc golf is super entertaining, is because of the easiness of what it looks like. Sometimes, not all courses, not this course we're going to be playing this week. I can tell you that much right now. There will not be anyone. Well, there might be, but there won't be people that will be shredding every hole. That you will get into trouble off the tee sometimes and have to scramble. But sometimes we play these courses where it really does look like just pitch, putt, pitch, putt, pitch, putt. And I could see a little bit of that being boring, similar to like me. I'm never going to watch cornhole because like the best players, they don't miss. That's not really intriguing to me.
What about like as far as live? Do you think that disc golf is? I'm trying to take the blinders off myself right now as I think about this.
It's too slow.
And I'm a huge golf fan, but I'm not a big fan of watching golf live.
Like in person or on TV?
Yeah, in person. I'd rather watch it on TV. But disc golf, I feel like I would rather, if I was a fan, watch it live. And a big part of it is like what you have a big problem with, which is the double cut to the finish of the disc, so you don't get to see the whole flight.
Yeah.
But in person, I feel like it's way more impressive to be able to watch and see what these guys are actually doing, because you get no sense of like, oh, that went 550, but on camera it looks like the easiest thing ever. To watch a disc go 550, it's different. Like I still enjoy when I'm playing with the good players who throw it that far. I'm just like, my disc is so much slower than that. It's a different speed. It gets to a different turning point. I feel like disc golf is way cooler live than it is on film. And I wanted to bring this up. That ace that Jennifer hit, worst camera shot ever. You never get to see it go around the tree, which is the coolest part about the ace. It's getting around the tree. Just the coolest shot ever. And then it's like, flip it, bam, it goes in. I'm like, oh my gosh. Let me see that.
They definitely have the full shot too. So
yes,
I'm surprised
show both. Show both.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't just show.
You ruined me with that, by the way. You absolutely ruined me. Now every time I watch it, I'm like,
I'm telling you, this is the thing, is like when you have an outside mindset, like when you have other, and this is why we need to hire more people outside of disc golf. Like the Pro Tour, I'm just going to say it, stop hiring people in disc golf, because when you start hiring people outside, they're not used to anything. They're not like, this is how it is. They're going to see something and be like, why are you guys doing it that way? That doesn't make any sense to me, when it might all make sense to us because that's how we've seen it. It's the same thing when I've talked to people. My favorite thing to talk about, obviously, is like the fist bumps on hole 18 and stuff. And I just love asking people, like, why do you do it? And they're like, oh, this is what we've always done. And they're like, I'm like, well, do you think we should do it now or at the end of 18? And they're like, oh, I've never thought about it. This is just what we do. Like we need to stop having that mentality for everything of like, this is how it's always done. Now, one thing I'll talk about live that is struggling, like we got to sell alcohol. You got to have alcohol beverages. You got to have things like OTB had, where that sweet spot on, I believe it was like hole 6 or 7, that had like a deck and you could hang out, be in shade, Like, we got to have more stuff because, again, Milo, to me, probably as a spectator, felt like you were just kind of walking around a park. You weren't walking around a disc golf course.
Yeah, that's a big problem with disc golf, period, right now, and coming to live. Like, you go, like I said, I'm not a big fan of golf. I don't like going and watching it. I will to see my favorite players. I am intrigued to see them, to just be like, oh, there's Ricky Fowler. He's kind of small like me. This is awesome. He's, 50 feet away from me. There's that awe from the fan to the actual competitor. Now, at those events, I go there. The first thing I look for is a drink. I go get a drink. I look for food. I look for snacks. I look for the little souvenir so I could be like, hey, I came here. I got my thing. And then I'm done. Unless you're with a bunch of friends, and then you can rinse, repeat that process through the whole round. Otherwise, you go sit on a hole and you watch the hole all day. The sun's beating at you. Like, it's just not that fun to me. You know what I mean? But when there's things to do, you can kill 2 hours of time a lot faster.
Right now, too, if you are in an area that live disc golf is coming to, that there is a tournament coming to, right now potentially could be the best time to go watch, because what you're experiencing when you go watch live disc golf right now is you're experiencing stuff that would cost you 2 to 3 times the price at other sporting events. You are essentially going and watching inside the ropes. That's essentially what you're doing. When you go to other sporting events, especially the ones that are like out and about where you're walking around, most of the time you can't even, like, you have to go ahead of time to see anything. Like, if you just are following people, you're going to see the back of people's heads. So, like, right now is the time to go watch live, because if the sport grows, which obviously we all want it to grow, but if the sport grows to the point of where there's a couple thousand people watching lead card, it's going to be very difficult. And I've heard this at like USCGC, at some like the bigger tournaments that get bigger crowds, of where they're just like, I just couldn't see anything. So we just had to go a hole ahead or go watch someone else.
Dude, listen to this. I just had a funny thought. And it is this. If you're at a different event, whether it be a football game, basketball game, golf outing, or golf tournament, and you see your friends on the other side of the fairway and you just start booking it, you will get tackled by security guard. Like, you will get tackled. In disc golf, nothing happens. You just run over there, and then it's just like, I guess we got to wait for them.
Don't put bad ideas in people's heads, man. Don't put bad ideas. All right.
I just think that's funny. And to your point, it is a very special thing that we have going on right now. So you are right. Get out there and watch it.
It's very intimate right now. Very, very intimate. And it might not always be that way. So, get out there and watch live now, so you can say like, oh, I remember when you could just like walk and talk to a pro as they were walking and you were the only one. That's not going to be the case, or hopefully that's not going to be the case all the time. All right. Let's run through a little bit more of the leaderboard, and then we're going to have Simon come on here in 10 minutes because he decided to blast out a hot take, which I know will probably get us going here a little bit. Han Hanley, man, I'm telling you, she's due. Like, we keep talking about her. She's eventually going to get one of these things. Her game is getting to the point of where she really doesn't have that many weaknesses. Her forehand still is a little bit dicey, I would say, at times when she's trying to throw certain angles. Like hole 18, ended up not really mattering too much because Jen made her putt. But her upshot on hole 18, she was in a pretty good spot. She just threw a really bad forehand upshot. I don't know what it is. I think she's almost doing she's almost kind of like dropping her wrist to throw forehands, like on hyzer, versus like rotating her body and still having like the same kind of motion. I've just noticed that on a couple of her forehands. But other than that, her putting is coming along. She's got a really good backhand. Like, she has a very, very complete game. And, the way she's progressing, it doesn't look like she's near her ceiling. She's just going to keep getting better. And that's really exciting for the FPO division. Maria Oliva is another one that I think you put her on a course that is very backhand dependent, very heavy backhands off a lot of the tees. She's going to succeed. We saw her do really well. I believe it was last year at the women's, their U.S. Women's Championship. I believe it was a USWDC, some too many letters, but she played really well there. And it was very kind of a similar vibe of like shorter holes with backhands being more dominant. She did really well, getting third. Then we have Owen and Rebecca Cox, both in fourth place. Missy Gannon, we haven't really talked too much about Missy this year. I'm still kind of waiting for her to kind of have her breakout season. She doesn't seem to be like super far down leaderboards, but she also hasn't really had a breakout tournament. She hasn't really been in contention, and we've seen her in the past, be able to take some wins down. So we'll see maybe if she can kind of get it going a little bit. Allie Smith, this is a name that has popped up now a couple times. Again, I believe this is I don't know how old she is. I think I asked this last time. I think people answer like 16 or 17, I want to say. But this is like this might be the up and comer that we were talking about. Like, where are the up and comers of FPO? Allie Smith might be the up and comer. She has moved up a couple leaderboards now in some of these tournaments. So Kat Murch with a good finish in 6th place. And then rounding up the top 10, we have Lisa Fakis and Sarah Hokum. Now, a couple of names I just want to throw out that, I'm kind of surprised with their finishes. I think this course suited Sayananda really well. And I really was curious to see how, after her really great Texas State's performance, I was really curious to see how she would fare here. I don't think she did that well at OTB, but that was a much longer course, a little bit different than Texas State's vibe. This one is more, I would say, maybe on par with the Texas State's layout. So I was a little bit surprised to see her end up shooting a 4 under to finish at 12th and well off of the lead in top 5. But she kind of started slow. She kind of shot 71 to start, so kind of almost shot herself out of it to begin with. But yeah, I was a little bit surprised to see Sai kind of down there. I think she is a character. She's very interesting to me watching on live. So hopefully she can kind of turn it around a little bit here. Another surprising name, Katrina Allen. +5 for the tournament, finishing in 22nd place. And again, this is where we have to kind of understand that essentially in the FPO field, anything outside the top 10 this year in a full field is probably not that great. Anything outside the top 20 in a full field is probably not
for the elite players in the field.
Yes. Anything outside the top 20 in a full field is not good at all. And this wasn't in a full field. So I don't know what happened. She went 74, 72, 66. She did have a good final round, but not sure what's going on with Kat right now. She's had a couple tournaments now where, last OTB, she was kind of in it until she took 11, so that kind of launched her down the leaderboard a little bit. But we'll see. Hopefully she can kind of get together, because, again, she was kind of going back and forth there not that long ago. Like, a year and a half ago, she was one of the top 2-3 players in the world.
Didn't she win Vegas?
She might have. Gosh.
I think she won Vegas, Brody.
Let's see. She did win Vegas.
Yeah.
She won Vegas and took second at the Open in Austin.
Yeah, I think.
But are we turning? But is this my fault? Like, are we turning now into what like people used to do with Paul and Ricky, of where they didn't win a tournament for a few weeks and we're just like, what is going on, right? Because I can say the same thing. Who is it? Like Ella Hansen got 11th. Kat Murch was 15 out after winning. Like, are we now seeing more of FPO kind of like fluctuating week in and week out? And we can no longer be like, oh, what's going on with Paige? She got, she finished 25th in a tournament. Like, are we now saying like that's okay because that there are just more players now? Or is that what you're telling me?
No, but I am saying, I feel like if we look at like the past, that's just kind of how Katrina plays. She wins a few events a year, and some of the events she struggles at. and you can expect her to usually play well at the majors.
Which we have. What's the next one? Worlds? Is that
But
the
you
next?
are right. A few
European
years
Open.
ago, she was in the mix every single tournament. There wasn't like an
Yeah.
off week, but there are more players now that are pretty dang good.
Are we saying Kristen Tatar is the only female right now in that category of where if she doesn't finish in like the top 3, top 5, that's a story? Is that the only person in that category for FPO?
I think Paige is in there. I think you're right. Katrina can be in there as well. It's just that I feel like pull up her stats from this year and last year. I think sometimes she just takes 20th.
No, you might be right. Yeah, and a lot of that has to do with her putting. Her putting can come and go when her putting is good. Normally, it's not her throwing.
Yeah.
So you might be right there. Another name, a name that has kind of gone a little bit under the radar this year. Lots of talk about Kona last year, mainly because of her big contract and then not really performing. Not that much talk about Kona this year. She finished 30th at this. Do you think that story has just kind of like people are just over it? Because I know initially it was like a big topic of she got paid a crap ton of money. She's not performing. What's going on? And I think do you think people now have realized the money might not have been for her to like get top 5s? The money was more of, she does have a big following. She does have a lot of fans and rooting for her, and people are okay with it.
No, I think obviously the contract was gambling that she was going to keep performing well, but then the insurance policy was that she already had a big following and she's going to continue to have a good social media presence through that time, which is a nice buffer, honestly. I think people do get bored. Eventually people are like, oh yeah, I can't believe she got paid that much. And then it just, over time, that story is just going to disappear.
Yeah. And we very well might be at that because it was like every week after a bad finish from Kona, people were just hammering.
Right. And now the storyline is going to be, I can't wait till she has a good finish. You know what I mean? And then it's going to be rooting. I feel like there's a process to this to where it's like, oh my gosh, what happened to that person? Oh, they're back. And it's like one of those storybook things. She could very well win this year. Who knows?
It's like the redemption arc,
Yep.
Getting down far enough to where you can build yourself back up. All right. We have a few other things I want to talk about on the Beaver Slate Fling side. Mainly, obviously, we have to go through some of the MPO results. I want to talk about the Drew Gibson, Ella Hansen tweet because me and Drew kind of tweeted roughly the same thing. We'll get that up here in a second, but we're going to have Simon, I think, pop on and join us here momentarily.
Okay.
Jen is still TBD on whether or not she will be making it tonight. But we should have Simon popping in here whenever he can. So until that happens, maybe we talk real quick about the Big Germ situation because I don't want to go into the MPO side until we have enough time to talk about it. So maybe we talk about Big Germ.
Okay.
Did Big Germ single-handedly take down the PDGA rating system in one tournament? Did Big Germ just say, you know what? I've posted about ratings on Facebook long enough. I am going to go over to Japan. I am going to take on the highest rated player in the world, and I'm going to single-handedly beat him by 17 strokes. Did he solve the once and for all? Did he solve the rating system for all of us and prove that it is a flawed system?
You know who has great takes on this? Who loves ratings is a guy who's waiting in the depths here. So
let's bring him out of the corner. Bring him out bring him in right now. Simon Lizotte. You guys got thrown in by Yuli straight away. I don't know if you were able to hear what we were just talking about, but thanks for coming back, man. It's always a pleasure having you on Tour Life. How are things going for you right now?
Good. I heard like the last 20 seconds, I think it was something about ratings, and we were just trying to put the baby to bed unsuccessfully.
Oh boy.
And my parents just were here visiting from Germany for a week, and I just dropped them off at the airport a couple hours ago. So it was a fun week with family and friends. All good.
Do you have one of those what do they call them? Snoozle? I don't know what they're called, but you put the baby in it, like kind of just rocks it when it
it was highly recommended by many parents, but we never got it. I'm not sure why.
Do you have the mattress that you can breathe through?
Breathe?
Do you know what I'm talking? Yeah, there's a mattress that you can like stick up against your face and still be able to breathe through. So that way, like maybe I've been talking to really overbearing parents that are terrified.
For safety reasons.
Yeah, because I think like 1 in like a billion kids or something like suffocates or something from that. I don't think it's a real thing, but
no, sleep safety is a huge issue, and we made sure to have a hard mattress and no blanket and stuff, of course. But
no blanket. Okay, that's the play.
Yeah, I mean he's almost 16 months now, and he's getting to an age where he can start having blankets, and the sleeping safety issue is not a huge concern anymore.
I didn't want to terrify you. I'm sorry for you coming on and just getting terrified. I was just throwing out random facts like that. Let's change this. Let's change the subject here. Let's change the subject. Okay.
What are you feeding your baby, you monster?
Today, Chipotle.
Okay, so before you came on, we were talking about Big Germ, and my question was, Big Germ has had some of these posts on Facebook. I don't know if you've seen them in the past, where he's like, "There's no way James Conrad's round at Jonesboro should be rated as low as," he kind of throws out the ratings every once in a while. So my question was Big Germ so upset at the rating system that he said, "You know what? I'm going to go to the Japan Open, play against the highest rated player in the world, basically the best player in the world based off the PGA rating system, and I'm going to beat this man by 17 strokes to prove that the rating system is flawed and broken."
I like that idea. I don't think his motivation was that, but if that proved a point, then I think he's double happy, because as far as I can tell from his social media posts, it seemed like he had the best week of his life in Japan, which 7 years ago when I went, Tokyo was the favorite place I've ever been to this day.
Yeah, Japan is an absolute wild country. If you can make moves over there, Mount Fuji is one of the more scenic places I've ever seen. It's just a mountain literally by itself. Nothing, like everything's so flat around it, and he's got this massive mountain with the the snow caps and all that stuff. But yeah, Japan. I wish Japan Open like that. I wish that was a big tournament. I wish that what happened there? Wasn't that one tournament like a lot of top pros used to go to?
Yeah, it used to be a major.
I heard someone died who was an important person running that tournament.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I could be wrong.
No, you're right. It was the greenskeeper at the golf course it was supposed to be played at. Wait, am I now mixing my golf with my disc golf? I was supposed to go out to Japan. I might be, you know what? This would be a weird coincidence, but I think I was supposed to go out there for a golf trip, and the greenskeeper messed something up with the golf course. And so that he basically offed himself, and they canceled the trip because the whole tournament got shut. I don't think this is the same thing.
No, probably not.
Okay. This has been a wild start of an interview. I'm sorry.
Calm down.
Sorry. This has been a wild start of an interview. Okay, let's go back. Let's go back and get to the point of why we wanted to bring you on tonight. Not talking about the topic so far. Jeez, I am so sorry. Okay, maybe this is you not playing this past week and like sitting home and watching, but you went to Instagram and you posted on Instagram, and I'll read it for everyone listening. You made a post saying disc golf needs more Mandos. I used to hate Mandos. Oh wait, was that the first one? I think that was the first one. Right? Yeah. So disc golf needs more Mandos. I used to hate Mandos, and I thought it was poor course design, but the reality is that we don't have a real disc golf course that was built just for disc golf yet. Until then, we need more Mandos and get rid of all drop zones. If you miss the Mando, play it where it lies with a stroke penalty. Also, all OB should be hazard equals better game. And then you went on to say, maybe should we stop there and tackle that before we go on the next one? I think so, because the next one's a very interesting take from you. So Yuli,
I don't even remember. I think the next one was up only for like 10 minutes, and then I took it back down. I don't remember what it was. What was it?
Oh, I have it. Okay, I can read it for you. So the next one's pretty good. The next one says, also we need areas that don't give you a stroke penalty, but make your next shot more difficult, like forehand only, no run up, or roller only. More skills will actually be beneficial. And this was kind of like close to like my dark horse thought one time, of where I think sometimes when you get around a bunch of disc golfers late at night, you just start talking about crazy stuff. One of my thoughts was like, what if every shot after your tee shot, every shot you somehow were able to make everyone have to throw their disc over their disc. So you can't lean out to the left to the right anymore. You have to throw over your disc. That would cause a lot of like different situations. But let's tackle maybe the first part here. So Mandos, what made you decide that Mandos were like essential for disc golf?
Just looking at the venues we tend to play on nowadays, like golf courses. Obviously, golf courses are controversial in disc golf, and I would say the majority agrees that it's not ideal for disc golfers to play on a golf course. For obvious reasons, we're playing a different game. Our discs do wildly different things than a golf ball can do. So I don't think it really highlights very well what disc golf should be. I mean, I know why we play at golf courses, and I agree that we should play on golf courses, but the course designs are still an issue and tricky. And I think a big reason why a lot of people complain about watching ball golf courses is because I think any player would agree that we can play most of those courses with 3 discs. And almost every tee shot is similar, which is a hard, straight distance driver with a hyzer finish. And mid-ranges are basically taken completely out of the game because you throw really far and then you have a putter up shot or another driver, depending on the hole. And we're basically losing this huge part of the game, which is throwing putters off the tee, throwing mid-ranges off the tee, and almost even throwing fairway drivers off the tee. Like, I think some tournaments I literally could play with 4 discs. Mm-hmm. Which I don't think is a good direction for us to go. I think what Mandos could bring to better course design is that if we're lacking obstacles, technically with 2 trees in the fairway that you make Mandos, you could design any shape, any shot we can possibly throw. You could, kind of unnaturally, but force us to throw by throwing in Mandos. All you need is 1 or 2 obstacles, and then you can basically shape any shot we can possibly throw. And I think that would make it for a more interesting watch, a better game. It might be a bit tricky to make it make sense to everyone watching, given the technical abilities that we have with media and stuff. Obviously, we don't want to create a game that's just wildly confusing for everyone to watch on what Mando is where and who goes next and who's what plus, minus, and all those things. But the main issue is that we all love disc golf, and we all are kind of waiting for disc golf to get big. I was just actually on the drive home from the airport just a couple hours ago. There was terrible traffic, and I was scrolling through YouTube because I was so bored. And I ended up clicking on the debate night from last night, I think and you were talking about disc golf versus pickleball and why pickleball is getting so popular so fast, and they're getting the big sponsors and the celebrities and all that things. And you were kind of wondering why pickleball and not disc golf. And I think a big reason is that pickleball is so pickleball has its playing field, and it's so simple, and it's all right there. And I think disc golf just
Hard to
doesn't.
film. It's really hard to film.
I would probably put myself in the top 3 of biggest disc golf fans when it comes to pro players, because I watch everything. I probably watch every disc golf video on YouTube that there is. I watch all the new stuff. I watch every live coverage when I'm not playing. I watch every single FPO round from tee off to finish when I have the time. And the main issue is, I think, is that our courses just don't look good on camera. And I don't know if the camera equipment is the issue or if the course itself is the issue. And
I've had an idea for a while. Can you hear me?
yeah.
Yes.
Perfect. And my idea is because I had this thought a long time ago when we started using the traditional golf courses as disc golf courses, and they're just these lengthy things. And I remember thinking, like, when watching it on film, it's so boring because it's just out into the open field. The distances really are tough for the announcers to be like, this is 500 feet. Well, 500 feet looks exactly like 320 feet thrown. It's really hard to like show how tough that shot is. So my thought was, why wouldn't we put like a bunch of triple mandos everywhere? Like a big, like, you know, the like the Zuka banners.
Mm-hmm.
What about putting that 300 feet out into the fairway to where then you'd have a reference point of like distance. You'd have a place to go through and you'd be able to film it and people would actually understand like what's going on instead of this big, not every hole, but this big old open field.
Didn't they have that at one of the holes on Vegas? It was like it was almost like an L-shaped hole. I feel like a couple years ago they had a hole like that of where you threw it straight. It was like straight down the fairway, and then there was 2 trees that you had to go through, and the basket was like tucked behind a bunker. And
well, the first one that comes to mind,
they hated that.
The first one that comes to mind is one of the best holes I feel like we have, which is at the USDGC hole 15. That's an amazing hole.
Oh yeah, mm-hmm.
And that's a triple mando straight down the thing. Now it's cool because you have that line of trees on the left-hand side and the line on the right-hand side, so it creates the tunnel. But guess what? If we have that in the middle of the field, it still creates the same shot, but we just don't have the beauty.
Yeah, I was going to say, how would that look? Yeah.
But I do agree with Simon as far as I feel like every hole should have a classic putter shot that's like an island to where you have to land the putter soft. I feel like you should have a 320-foot tunnel shot that you have to throw with the mid-range, and you should have like maybe a 400-foot slight turnover with a fairway driver or something like that. You should have those classic par 3s. There should be 3 par 3s on the course, or 4 maximum on our big courses, but they should all be those classic shots. Because when you go to a traditional golf course, you normally have, if you're playing from the tips, you have a 220, you have a 180, and you're guaranteed to have an 8-iron, like a 180, and then you're guaranteed to have like a pitching wedge of some sort into one of the greens. There's usually 3 to 4 par 3s, and they're those classic shots. One thing that I'm seeing in disc golf, which I bring it up every single week, which I think is the dumbest thing we have, is a 500-foot par 3. It's a cumulative being like, okay, how far it's not the same, but it kind of is to me. On traditional golf, the average drive is 295 yards or something. It might be a little farther now. That's the average drive on tour. So imagine having 2 300-yard par 3s in traditional golf. It'd be the dumbest thing you've ever seen. They've had one. I've looked it up. They've had one. At the US Open, they had one. And a big reason is like elevation. I agree with like elevated par 3 that's 500 feet. That doesn't matter, obviously. But this 500-foot par 3 thing just isn't, it just doesn't make sense to me. That's not a par 3 in my mind, you know? All right, that's my take. Someone's up.
Yeah, I'm going to say one more thing about this topic is I would just love to see courses where we use almost every disc in our bag.
Yeah.
And we need to strategize what discs we carry around, because obviously we all can't carry 50 discs. But at least like 15 to 20 discs is like, you need these main slots, and every course we play on tour should require at least more than 3 or 4 molds, because we throw the same freaking shot almost on every hole, it feels like. And I know at least, I don't know if I'm the only one, maybe you guys can speak to that a bit too. I literally could play any course with 3 discs, basically. Any of the golf courses we play. And I love W.R. Jackson for the reason that we use more discs. Like, I was throwing discs at W.R. Jackson that I didn't use the entire season beforehand. So it was awesome for me to learn new discs, of course, and it's just a part of the game that is important skills, and it's fun.
To be fair, me and Ezra got absolutely slapped up by the Robinson brothers on W.R. Jackson, and they just carried 5 discs around, and they slapped one of those being a putter, and they just slapped us real bad. I think they shot like 16 under. So
5 tournaments. 5 tournaments in a row last year, I didn't throw a mid-range. 5 in a row.
The mid-range is a dying disc. I will say that. It is a disc that on tour, it's a dying disc. It's not, people are, and what, I guess here's a question for you guys. What shot do we need to require what shot do you need to force someone to throw for a mid-range? For them not to throw a putter and for them not to throw like an overstable fairway? Like, what disc is it, or what shot would you need to force someone to throw?
That's the problem. Is I feel like it's the landing, and it's not the flight. So if you're going to force somebody to throw a putter, you're going to have to throw a putter because you need a soft landing. And a mid-range, you would need the ceiling to be lower and then the distance to be farther.
Okay.
And then there would need to be some sort of OB behind, because then if you throw fairway driver, you're skipping out of bounds. So there's for sure ways to do it.
It has to be low ceiling though, because if it's not low ceiling, you guys are all throwing putters?
Of course, yes. Because you want a soft landing, and so everybody can throw it 600 feet. So you're going to just throw a putter 380, 300, whatever it is. You know what I mean? I feel like that would be the only way. Any other ideas out there?
Yeah. When are you throwing mid ranges, Simon? What holes? Like, what shot shapes?
I'm just thinking. I'm looking at the USDGC course right now, because that also is kind of a course where you need a lot of different shots. Hole 1 USDGC. For some reason, even though it's really short and downhill, I throw a mid instead of a putter.
Now imagine if it was OB behind. Would you still throw a mid-range?
I mean, it's a low ceiling, kind of.
It is low ceiling.
Do you throw putters on that hole?
I throw putter. But I throw like a ringer, which is like right in between.
I throw a forehand zone because I'm terrified of that gap. That's what I do. Maybe that's the problem, is like, maybe there isn't that much of a difference really when it comes to a putter and a mid.
Maybe not.
Well, there's a difference.
I will say the low ceiling is the big one though, right? Like, if you throw a putter 10 feet off the ground and you throw a mid 10 feet off the ground, the mid is going to go farther.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right? Okay.
It's just we don't have a lot of shots like that. I'm trying to think of a hole you would throw a mid-range instead of a putter.
Oh, what about oh no, are you guys throwing putters on that one? The triple Mando hole, the bamboo hole, is that a putter throw for you guys too?
I throw putter.
Oh, see, Simon goes mid.
I throw a sidearm. So
yeah. Is it because the putter, for you to get that distance to the basket, you would have to throw it high to where it could potentially miss high? Is that why you go mid? You can just kind of line drive a mid at it?
I feel like for that distance, it just feels a bit more control to like glide in mid there than throwing a putter a bit harder.
So imagine this.
But
imagine
I also miss the
then.
triple mando every time, so I'm not the right guy to ask on that one.
So then
So maybe it
imagine
is
this.
a putter.
Imagine having another triple mando halfway in between that forced you to throw it low.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people would go like. I think if you do another mando there, Yuli, I think a lot of people would go fairway driver.
But depending on the height,
Yeah,
really.
I guess it depends. Yeah, it's a weird.
See,
it's a weird one. It's a weird one.
I really feel like there's a way to design a specific hole to make the player throw a specific shot. And of course, there's going to be outliers. Like, not everybody throws the same. Some people throw nose up. Some people throw hyzer flips. Some people do all kinds of different things. Some people throw. Dude, I played this doubles the other day on Monday at this old course, and I got beat by a guy who threw a boss on every shot. Didn't matter. Didn't matter. He just threw a skip shot with his boss on every hole. 320 feet or 200 feet, it was a boss, and he parked every shot. So there are going to be outliers. But when you get to the tippity top echelon of the sport and you have the best players, you have to think that that person is going to have a great disc golf IQ and be able to go, okay, I need to eliminate these options, which means this is the right shot for this throw.
Yeah. No, you definitely need to have like trouble around the greens to force people to have to think about their shot. Simon, I want to move on to before we like hammer this point to death. I want to move on to your drop zones because I agree with you. I think sometimes the drop zones that we have on tour, this is where I feel like there's a little bit of a growing pains because it feels like drop zones were created a lot of times for like the bad players, pace of play, right? It seemed like drop zones were like, well, if we have to, if you throw, so we all played. Let's think of like one of the more famous holes is like 16 at Country Club. Okay, so it's like that really sweet green. We're throwing over water the whole time. If that hole didn't have a drop zone, I think tournament directors would be terrified that players would be standing on the tee box throwing shots all day. So what do? They make it to where the drop zone's like a jump putt. So that way it just pace of play reasons, move on. Are your takes like no drop zones at all? So like in that scenario, if you throw it in the water and you don't clear anything, you keep throwing until you land on the island? Or are you on the side where it's like, okay, that's like a 350 shot. Let's give him like a 300-foot shot. That's like a little bit closer, easier angle for their drop zone. What's your take on that?
Well, I think for specific holes, it's important to keep in mind pace of play, of course. And the other thing is, I'm not a fan of holes where you can just throw away the entire tournament because you skipped off the island. Or in that case, you could even throw a great shot, hit the basket, roll OB, and then start emptying your bag from there. And then you're just done just because of bad luck. Like, I think, of course, if you make stupid decisions and you throw bad shots, you're going to be punished. But having a hole where you can literally take double digits without being too off, I would not love to see that. I think on holes like that, island holes over water, I think a drop zone.
You like progressive drop zones?
Yeah, the 40-footers. The 40-footers, get rid of them.
The
Please.
40-footer death putt for par might that has to go. Like that can we all agree? I see what you're saying, Simon, of where it would be ridiculous standing on the tee pad and watching someone just dump their bag in the water and their tournament's over. But also, it's also ridiculous when someone makes it on the island, has a 30-footer, hits it off the band, someone throws it in the water, never even had a chance, and they get the same score. That's where it's like, man, that seems like it shouldn't be happening. So what about like progressive? Throw your first shot in the water, next shot's at 300 feet, next shot's at 200 feet, next shot's a 40-foot 40-foot death putt or whatever. Like, do you like progressive at least to where you're still forcing them to have to throw maybe a couple extra shots, but they're not going to get a massive number.
Well, if you really think about it, that's kind of what golf is, though. You play the same score in wildly different ways. Like, I was playing golf just a couple of weeks ago. I was playing with, like, I'm terrible at golf, but I can, like, hit the ball kind of. So I played like a great par 5. I had a great tee shot fairway, second shot fairway, third shot on the green, and then I 3-putted, which, I mean, happens to terrible players all the time. I mean, a 3-putt is not even that bad. And took a bogey, or what, I don't know, double bogey, whatever it was at the time. And the other player on my card shanked it in the bunker, shanked it into another bunker, shanked it into the rough, somehow scrambled on the green in 5 shots, and then 2-putted and got the same score. I felt like I played the hole so well and just missed my 2 putts. And he played the hole terribly, like every shot was bad, and we ended up with the same score. So I think that's just golf. Like, you can throw, it's just, you get to the same place in very different ways.
I'm in for tin cupping. I'm in for it. Leave the people who are going to take the 20, dude. If you're going to take, because here's the thing. Every single time somebody takes a huge number,
Yuli just wants you to buy more discs because they throw them all in the water.
There's always an option to throw it into an area to not take that big number. Name one time that you have seen somebody take a huge score where they didn't have an option to just go, okay, I'm going to throw it to here.
17
for
USDC.
sure. 17, you can throw a putter up, what, 70 feet? And then you're telling me you're going to take 12 shots from there? You can jump putt? No. There's still a way. But we don't do it. So they deserve it. If you're going to go for the shot all those times, there should be no progressive drop zone. None. If there's an option for you to be like, okay, I'm going to throw it safe, and I most likely am going to hit the island.
See, now, my pushback on that, though, Yuli, is I hate the holes where the only person that gets punished is the person that's trying to birdie the hole.
That's not true, because they get rewarded if you throw a good shot.
Yes, but I think sometimes we play holes where, like, to birdie it is so difficult and to par it is super easy if you're just like, well, I'm just going to throw 200. I mean, a perfect example of that is Jones' Worlds last year. Worlds last year, hole 1 Supreme, right?
Yeah.
If you played that hole for birdie, there was a high chance of you getting a bogey. If you play that hole for par, you just jump putt, tap in, move on.
I've 5'd it playing it for par, so that is not true.
Okay, well.
And I played with multiple people who missed it.
My point still is, like, should we be having people jump putt off of par 3s, Yuli? Is that what you want your disc golf to look like? People stepping up to
play golf. Here's what I'm saying. If you throw USDGC 17, if you throw a shot and you miss the island green, and let's say that you have me by 1 stroke going into that hole. I have an option now to jump putt to the end and get the stroke back.
Riveting drama.
But that's the way that it is. Do you like seeing in traditional golf somebody go, oh, I have a 2-stroke lead, let me hit this iron off of it? Or do you want to see him go kaboom with the driver? It's golf.
I know, but hitting the iron is still difficult.
No, it's not.
Jump putting to 70 feet is not hard. No one's ever going to mess that up.
Brody, you know hitting a 7-iron down a fairway is not hard. That is not true.
It is when there's pressure on the line. It is.
Not as hard as hitting a driver.
The problem is we can't really compare disc golf with golf because of the skill level that golf takes is far superior. The one thing I will say, though, is right now, and let me ask you this, Simon, do you think the value on shots are at a good level? And what I mean by that is the value of being good at putting far outweighs right now the value of being a good thrower. If you're really, really good at putting and decent at throwing, you have a chance to win. If you're really good at throwing and decent at putting, you're going to struggle winning tournaments because putting can just solve so many problems for you. Do you think the value of those two is on a good scale right now?
I do not think that. Do you?
Wait, you don't think what I okay, hold on. I asked that question terribly. Do you think what I said makes sense, or are you saying that the value of throwing needs to be higher than it currently is?
I think the value of throwing needs to be higher than it currently is.
Okay. Yeah. So we both agree then. We both agree that the putting value right now is way too high compared to the throwing value.
Yeah, and there's two ways to solve the problem.
Oh gosh, here we go. It's coming. SB, baby. SB. Hit him with it.
Well, SB is one option. And then the other option is to
That's smaller baskets, Yuli.
Yeah,
Just
to
one.
add more OB, but make it hazard. So any shanked up shots or tee shots are still within 60 or 50 feet or 40 feet, whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
But you get a stroke penalty for sucking, and then you can still make a par. And then it's equal then. The putting and driving will be equally important.
We can't have someone launch a shot 60 feet over the basket and go OB and then be able to pull it in and have a 5-footer for par. We can't be having that happen.
That sucks.
We can't be having that happen. They have to be putting for their par 60 feet away.
But why not just have stroke and distance?
I think we should.
Way too punishing. Way too punishing.
No. For certain holes, I think we should have stroke and distance. Certain holes. Certain designs. Like, to me, stroke and distance is great. Like, let's say you have a boring fairway, okay, straight down, super boring. To me, if you land on the right side, let's say the right side angle into the green is really bad. And if you land on the left side angle into the green is really good. So it's like a dog leg to the right, let's say, okay? If you go OB down the left and hazard down the right, now everyone has to make a decision off the tee. Do I want to miss my shot right and still have a chance of maybe getting up and down for par if I do go in the hazard? Or if I do get greedy and try to land on the left to give myself that birdie look, now all of a sudden, like, I'm OB and I'm rethrowing. Like, I think certain course designs of where you can have the stroke and distance, like kind of what you were saying about like forcing people to throw shots with the Mando, I think you can do that with hazard and OB as well, of forcing them to a certain spot because one spot's way more punishing than the other. That's what I'll say with the OB. I don't want to litter the whole course with it, but I think you can throw it in here and there.
What about this?
I think it's too punishing.
Okay, what about this? Let me.
Especially it's too punishing with how easy the game is. Kind of, I guess that's the problem, right? It's like a double bogey on some of these tournaments. All of a sudden, you have no chance to win.
It should be one side is hazard, the other side is a skill area where you have to throw a forced shot or you can't take a run up.
Do we go into the skill area now, or Yuli, you say what you're going to say, and then we'll go into the skill area because I think this is fascinating.
Okay,
it makes sense.
This is my take. This is what I'm sick of. If we can collectively figure this part out, I'll be okay with kicking the disc forward. Okay, but this is a hole. Okay, it's 800 feet, dead straight. Okay, the green's on a right to left slope. All right, right to left slope. Mm-hmm. There's a right to left crosswind. I'm in a playoff, and I'm in a playoff with Eagle McMahon. All right, I throw my shot. This one doesn't have stroke and distance, okay? It's just regular OB rules. I throw my shot 400 feet into the dead center middle of the fairway. Eagle throws his 600 feet, and he goes out of bounds left. I'm left with 400 feet into a sloping green with a right-to-left crosswind.
This is a good point. No.
He's left with a 200-foot upshot into a left to right or right to left slope with a right to left crosswind. He's going to most likely get up and down with a putter, a stable putter going sidearm into the green, right? What are my options now? My options are I have to go for this crazy thing with a fast disc, most likely. There's no chance I'm landing in bounds with any shot. It would take a little bit of luck. So now, me being inbounds, I'm actually probably more punished than he is. Now I have to lay up and hope he makes a mistake from 200 feet where I have thrown the better shot. The person who throws at OB should always be more punished. But in this case, it is. Now, let's do this. Guess what? Stroke and distance on both sides. I throw a shot 400 feet into the middle of the fairway. Guess where Eagle is going to be throwing his shot?
Probably in the same spot. Yeah.
Probably in the exact same place, right? That comfort zone.
Heiser overstable right there. Yeah.
And now, what are our options? We have the same ones.
Yeah, you're gonna be dancing now. You're gonna be going back and forth.
Now you're playing golf. Mm-hmm. Now, do I lay up short and hope he runs it, or do I go for the green, try to win the tournament? Those are the two options that you have. Now we're playing golf. I think the rules okay, yeah, I want to hear it. But this is what I feel like is the big separator right now. Is our game gives more emphasis on distance and out of bounds than inbound shots are not rewarded as much as distance.
Yeah, it's a good point. All right, the flaw.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think you're just failing a bit to see that distance is a skill.
No, I'm not. Distance is a skill, and he can still throw that shot. Distance needs to be a skill if you have distance and accuracy. That's why there's long drive contests where people are doing it in the desert with a driver and traditional golf, and those guys aren't on tour playing because they can't hit the ball that far. Rory McIlroy does it. He hits the ball farther than everybody, but he also hits the ball pretty accurately. So does John Rahm. They are the best players in the world.
I can
Eagle
see
is also the best player in the world.
Yes, but what I'm saying is, if he is that good with his skill, he'll be throwing that 600 feet and beating me in the playoff, and he will have that option. But will he do it?
And we have seen people do that. We have seen people throw really far, accurate shots for sure. I don't know. See, it's such a weird one because I don't want to punish people from throwing far, and then all of a sudden we have like this layup game where everyone's just like throwing like safe shots off the tee. I think that's not really what we're trying to go for.
For Simon, we can all throw far. I can throw a 360 100 feet farther than I throw my normal shot, but you don't see me throwing it all the time because it's not a honed-in skill that I can do off the tee pad.
Yeah, because most courses we play, accuracy is just as rewarded as distance, honestly.
The hole I just explained, there's at least two of them on every single tournament that we play, buddy.
Name one.
At least.
Name one.
Name one?
One hole.
Name one what?
One hole that you just described.
All right, let's see. This last weekend, how about hole...
This last week is probably not a good one because we didn't have really OB that much.
I mean, OTB is a perfect example. There's all the par fives you can throw if you throw it 600 feet.
Hole 2, there's not a lot of OB. The OB on the right side, the OB on the right side is kind of punishing though if you go OB right. I think what Yuli's talking about right now, Simon, is like holes where. Because did you go OB on the right side of hole 2?
I didn't even know there was OB. At OTB?
Yeah, you just said you found You said you found OB on the hole,
but left in the parking lot. Are we talking about the same hole?
I went out of bounds left.
Sorry. I was thinking about the first par 5. Sorry, I know what you're saying. Yes. Okay, the low ceiling shot off the tee. Yeah, like that one. There is OB
like
left.
If Eagle blasts a 600-foot laser and then trickles OB left, and Yuli throws a 300-foot precise, perfect shot down the middle, Eagle's going to save a par, and Yuli's probably going to get a par. I think that's perfectly fair.
I think Yuli just is saying, he wants Eagle to have a harder time to par that hole.
No. I'm saying accurate shot in golf should always be better than an out of bounds shot, and it isn't. That's why in traditional golf, if you go out over the white stakes, my pitching wedge into the fairway has the advantage because accuracy is a premium. Staying inbounds is a premium. You play golf, right? It's so hard that when you hit it out of bounds, I'm sure you probably just get your ball and take it straight out from where it was and then hit it from there.
I just give up the hole at that point.
Mark me down for a double, please. Moving on.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you guys can't agree that an accurate shot should be more rewarded than an out of bounds shot, now, which you're saying, then we are so far off in our thought process.
Okay. One more point, and then we can move on.
Okay.
The hole you first described is a par 4, I'm guessing?
Yeah, par 4.
And if you make it so hard for yourself to get a birdie, I think you're playing the hole wrong.
Okay, shorten it.
And then shorten the hole, and then you can birdie it, and you'll take the par. Like, then there's no problem anymore.
It's one shot swing.
Like, if you're throwing 2 400-foot shots and you're struggling to get a birdie, then you deserve to not get a birdie either.
There is some advantage. Oh, go. Yep.
I don't think that's correct. If somebody's throwing it out of bounds and you don't throw it, if you play a hole perfect, and I'm not saying by like, okay, I'm going to throw a mid-range and take a par. I'm saying if we have stroke and distance the same way, then why do we all know we're all landing in the same spot?
Okay, what about this, though?
No, what?
You throw the perfect shot in the middle of the fairway.
Yeah.
Eagle also throws the same shot, but he hits like a little mound and rolls into the OB and now have to re-tee, even though he hit within an inch of where your disc landed. But because of the fluke factor that we have, because we are not playing on perfectly manicured fairways,
Fair
it's just
point
up
to
to
Simon.
chance what happens there.
Fair point
And
to
then
Simon.
he's so punished, like way too punished.
Because my hole doesn't have that, Simon. You're making up your own hole. My hole doesn't have that. My hole is on a traditional golf course, which is what we always play. And normally, aside from OTB, which has these crazy potholes everywhere, most of the fairways are pretty good. Would you agree? There's not these little things.
No, Yuli. What are you talking about? We play in fairways that have roots all over the place, stumps are all over the place, rocks, sticks. I would say the majority of the fairways we play, a lot of times your disc will be in the. There's one hole this week that if you're in the perfect spot, you're in the middle of the fairway, you could be on a path, and the path is in the middle of the fairway. It's just like a walking path, and there's like a 6-inch gap between the path and the actual like grass. So if your disc is barely on the path, you now are just basically gonna break your ankle in the run up, and you're in the middle of the fairway. That's a very common thing in disc golf, just having bad fairways.
The easy answer to this is you can hit a really good drive into the fairway in traditional golf and land in a divot. Bad stuff happens.
So much less likely, I feel like.
But that's way less punishing than re-teeing.
That's also true. Good point. You can still hit out of the divot and make a birdie. If your disc hits like a stump and rolls OB, you're now throwing 3 from the tee. That's so much more punishing.
The fact that you're saying a 400-foot shot, you're not going to be able to this is a crazy argument to me, because if we have a wide open field, okay, and the hole that I described, I don't care if it's on ice, you're probably going to be able to land in the middle of the fairway. That's how accurate we are. Let's not kid.
To find the truth and essence of situations, you often have to go to the extremes to figure out if they're actually good or not, your points. Because that's how you find truth, is by hypothetical extremes.
Good point. Point to Simon.
Okay, so here's a hypothetical extreme, okay?
We'll end it on this one, and then we'll move on, because I do want to get this next topic. So give us your hypothetical. Let's hear it, and then we'll move on.
Here's a hypothetical right here. How about we just make every hole 700 feet or let's say 650 with no OB anywhere. That's a perfect place for Simon Lizotte, right? And then
Love it.
you would love that, right?
I mean, my bank account probably would.
Mm-hmm. Your bank account would probably like that. Do you think that would be a fun place to play?
No.
All right.
This is what I think needs to happen, and this is the only thing that's going to solve the problem. We each go out, we make our own course, and then we play each other's course, and we rate and see which one we like better. That's the only way we're going to find out what's the best way of going about this. All right, Simon, your last take.
Yes.
First off, why did you delete it? I guess would be my question.
You know, sometimes I think we were walking to the park with the baby, and I was just kind of like lost in my mind a bit and thinking about some disc golf stuff. I was just watching some coverage from the Beaver State Fling, and I was like, man, I've always had this thought that golf is just such, I've said this a bunch of times on podcasts too, but golf is such a great game because they have a fairway, and then they have the rough, and they have bunkers, and all these different skills. And in disc golf, because we don't have millions of dollars to create bunkers and rough that would be equivalent to the disc golf skills needed, we need to fake it, because there will not anytime soon we will have millions of dollars to build an actual disc golf course.
Dude, you just got $4 million, bro. Make a good course already.
Point to Yuli.
I mean, the way to fake it would be to make unnatural areas where you are forced to show a skill, like it is to hit out of the rough or hit out of a bunker. Those are different skills, and if you're really good at them, it'll obviously be great for your scorecard. And I think
unless you can throw it 600 feet past those areas, and then you get a free pass.
Maybe there's more of those areas around the 600 feet mark.
Sorry for
that would be
interrupting.
fair, probably. And I don't know. I think.
What made you delete it though? Did you just blast it out and then you're like, oh, I need to delete this because you kept the other one, but you deleted this one?
No, I deleted both. I feel like I need to get something out there, and then I check like 10 minutes later, and I get like 50 messages of people arguing about it, and I'm like, oh, I guess I don't really like being in the center of attention that much, and I don't like when people argue about what I say, and then I just get scared.
You came to the wrong podcast, my friend.
I was gonna say in the future, if you're having these thoughts, just text me and we'll get you on the next podcast and you can air them all out. Because I do get in trouble sometimes too when I tweet stuff out, because I think it is a lot harder to sometimes, in text, especially on Instagram or Twitter, where you have, you can't just write a paragraph or a novel to try to get your point out. It's obviously easier to do in person. Now, I will say, I don't know if I'm for the forehand only or the roller only spots, but I am for the run up, like the no run up. I could see that being, an additional, like you're talking about, we need to like start having skills of, some people can putt well, some people can jump putt well, people can scramble well, forehand, backhand. I think if we did have no run up zones or areas, I guess you could say, that would be an additional skill that we would all have to practice. We would all have to start working on, okay, how do we stand still and try to throw 400 feet? And that could
we would all lose 200 feet instantly. Like you just physically can't throw as far without the momentum of a run up. And I think that's the perfect equivalent to a bunker or a rough shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't just 360 your way out or chuck a. Now, will people learn how to throw like standstill rollers, or would you have to create something to force people not to be able to get away with doing that?
No, you can throw standstill rollers. I think that would be ridiculous, but if someone can do it, then I'm all for it. Show your skills.
Okay. Because to me, in like a perfect world, the only thing, there is one flaw, because I know you're probably going to call us out, so I'm going to jump on it first before you call me out, is we have like tall grass, like not like rough in golf, like 2 feet of tall grass. No one is getting a good run up in tall, thick grass like that. So a lot of us have to either do this awkward run up where we're probably going to mess up, or stand still. Now, big flaw to that. Playing on a course like that is going to be a nightmare. It's like trying to find your disc and stuff in 2 feet of tall grass. That sounds awful. And that also poses for course maintenance and bugs and insects, all sorts of weird stuff. So like, I'm kind of with you in the idea of where right now we don't have the money. So how do we artificially do it? It's the same take that I have with like the people that hate artificial OB. We don't have the money to put in a beautiful lake and a fountain and make this super iconic hole with this like water hazard. So what do? We just put flags up and paint rope or paint on the ground. And that is our artificial, beautiful lake that we don't have the money to put in. Is that what you're kind of getting at? It's a similar vibe to that.
Yeah, exactly. And I am actually surprisingly, bunkers are shockingly tough to throw out of when you're not putting in disc golf as well. Like running up in sand is very much harder than running up on grass. So
that's soft
what's
sand.
Your favorite place to play? Like your favorite tournament? Like what is your absolute, you cannot wait to go there every single year? And not just like the tournament because of the feelings you get. I'm saying the course.
Well, the one I love the most recently, it's only been on tour for 2 years, but I think Glendeveer is our best venue. I think it looks the best on camera, and it has the most beautiful picturesque holes, and it's just an awesome place to play.
I haven't played there since in 2 years, and I know they switched it up last year. So what is like the style of course? And I asked that question because are we just missing the mark on course design in general on the Pro Tour and adding all this extra stuff? Is that because we're missing the mark, or are there courses that do challenge us in a way that with all our skill level and shots, is there a course out there that does challenge us? And then why aren't we doing it like that, I guess?
Wait, I think I misunderstood your question. You asked me where I like to play the most, or what course I think is the best. Two different things.
No, I'm asking, what is Glendeveer like? And is that a play? Do you like it because of the way it plays now? It's your favorite place to play. So does it play well? And if so, is that a type of course that then we wouldn't need to put all this hazard and all this stroke and distance, or if you throw here, you have to throw roller only, or sand pit here, sand pit there, or adding those things to this course? Would that even make this course better?
I think it would. I mean, we can throw out the roller idea. I just put that in there because I was running out of good ideas. But I think if we thought about it a bit more, we could come up with a great system for areas like that. But let's just keep it with standstills right now. I think every course would benefit from standstill areas. I think every course would benefit from less OB and more hazard. I'm not a huge fan of the layouts we play there. I think they're fine. I think they're good enough. And I think the Glendeveer layout we played last year had 17 Mandos, actually, on
There's
18
a lot
holes.
of Mandos. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Which at first I got there and I was like, man, this is ridiculous, all these Mandos. But the more I kind of thought about it and the more we played it, I was like, man, they could have used a couple more Mandos to make the course even better, is what I thought at the end of the tournament. Okay. I think it's not ideal course. I think the best course we play on tour is WR Jackson, but it has many flaws. Like there's a huge limit on spectators and the cell service sucks. So I think Glendeveer as a package has the most potential because it's close to Portland. It's the sickest venue to come watch. They have a great restaurant and brewery right on site, and it's just a beautiful walk in the park. There's nothing really to complain about. I don't think the courses are great. They're fine, but it's not necessarily the disc golf I want to see. The huge bomber shots. I mean, every course needs a bomber hole or two, but I am a huge fan of technical disc golf.
And go ahead, Yuli.
No, I was going to say, it's funny to me that it seems like all the power throwers that I know, they consider themselves great woodsmen. You know, they're like, no, I prefer this type of golf, which is awesome to me because like Anthony, you would think that he would prefer, like maybe as a fan of the sport, he would prefer to like go to OTB because that's where he performs well at. But his favorite course is the black course in Peoria. And then your favorite is W.R. Jackson. And I'm sure if we talked to Double G, he'd be like, no, I like going into the woods. It's like this classic thing that I feel like almost everybody loves, and it's slowly getting taken away from us, which is kind of sad to me.
It is sad, but we need to find the perfect way to play with obstacles and still be able to have spectators there. Like, we need lines of trees where we play through and the spectators are outside of the trees, which Glendoveer actually has as close as we can probably get to that, which is why it's a great venue for disc golf as well. And the WR Jackson, just doesn't cut it.
Do you like Smugs?
I love Smugs.
Like Fox Run?
My issue with wooded courses is that we often have fairways with trees right in the middle. So you throw your intended shot and you just hit a tree, and then it's just up to luck where your disc ends up. Yeah. And I think the fluky factor that we have on wooded tracks is miserable, because I can play the same round twice and shoot 10 strokes different.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's tough. It's tough to take. This is what I'll say about those trees in the middle of the fairway. I hate them just as much as you. The problem is, though, if you take out all the trees in the middle of the fairway and the tree line on, the either side of the fairways isn't like super brutal, it makes scrambling so much easier, because now you can essentially
make it hazard.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that, Simon. I'm with you on that, brother. People hate having hazards and stuff like that in the woods, but you just end up seeing players just go forehand roller or whatever, and just go all the way down the fairways and stuff and get as far down there, and then they get the same score as the person that threw a pure tee shot. So
that's ridiculous.
I'll also agree with you with the more Mandos thing. I think what you're talking about is essentially, again, it kind of goes back to the artificial versus non-artificial. When you can't plant trees, right? Putting a Mando on a tree saying you have to go around this tree is essentially making a wall of trees, an artificial wall of trees of like, you can't go this way because there's artificial wall of trees. Like, again, if disc golf had millions of dollars for course design, you wouldn't have to put a Mando on that tree. You would just plant a bunch of trees right here, and everyone's like, all right, I can't throw that way. I have to throw around this way. We can't do that. So next best thing, Mando.
I feel like Mandos, even when you have tree lines like that, are important, because what I'm seeing with a lot of holes too is there can be a big tree line, a tunnel, and if there's any slight little bitty hole up there, a lot of people are just launching through there to beat a lot of the fairway. And so I don't think with disc golf, because of the imagination and the shot manipulation that people can do, I don't think we're ever going to get rid of Mandos unless it's a complete canopy to where like it's impossible. You know what I mean? You're blocking, because with us, you have to block out angles that are backwards even.
The only way to do it is my advertising way, where you just put huge billboards of wood in the tree lines and you can put advertising on them. You can't throw a disc through wood. Think about that.
Question. Actually, in my post, I said, when I said get rid of drop zones, I wasn't really referring to drop zones after you go OB and then you get a death putt to try and save a par. I meant specifically mandatory drop zones. So usually we have right now, when you miss a Mando, the drop zone is usually like right next to the Mando, and you throw your next shot from there with the stroke penalty. Mm-hmm. What do you think? I just had this idea when I posted this for the first time, and I thought about it, and it sounds a bit ridiculous, but I think it kind of works, and it might make it for a really cool addition to the game. Like, what if you miss the Mando, you actually just play it where it lies, the Mando is missed out of play, you get a stroke penalty, and you just play on. I think that would make for a really, really interesting game, because sometimes you would intentionally miss a Mando because that's how you would play the hole, but you would just take the stroke penalty because you still might think that's how you can get your best score, and you would see people playing the hole differently. I'll give one whole example here. Let's think about the par 5 at WR Jackson. I think it's hole 8. You're in this little hut and you throw along. There's these little 2 or 3 trees right in the middle of the fairway, like 400 feet down.
Mm-hmm.
Make one of those trees Mando, either left or right. Now the tee shot becomes way more important, and people who can aim, the gaps on the right or left of those trees are big enough to aim for, more or less. And people who miss it on the wrong side still go to their shot, but now they're throwing 3 instead of 2. And people who missed it on the right side throw 2. And people who want to throw really far and have less accuracy get way down the fairway, but they get a stroke penalty. Stuff like that, I think, could potentially make the game better.
Yeah, I don't hate the Mando thing. Obviously, it's one of those where I would have to definitely like think about certain holes and how it would play.
I like anytime there's a mandatory, and if you miss it, you get. I like penalties for bad shots.
Well,
That's all.
He's still saying you get a penalty.
Yeah. No, I know. Yeah, no, I like it. Yeah, I don't mind when somebody throws a bad shot and then is instantly penalized. I think that should always happen.
No, and but you play it where it lies. What do you think of that?
No, I understand what you're saying. I mean, it just depends on the hole design. Like, what if it's like? Then again, it comes down to like somebody being like, okay, I'm going to miss this mandatory. I'm going to throw it 700 feet. I'm going to go OB again, but then I'm going to tap it in for 4. But people who go down and don't miss the Mando are probably either going to get a 3 or a 4. Like, that to me is like, it sounds a little ridiculous. Because I could see this happening. You know what I mean? Now, what you're talking about as far as the par 5, that sounds absolutely fine to me. Because of the way that the hole would play, and accuracy off the tee is a premium.
Let's do a hypothetical. We have a short par 3 where the turnover shot is pretty challenging, but it's there. But you have a Mando like right off the tee, which is left. So you have to throw a turnover to clear the Mando, and let's say it's a 250-foot shot, like short par 3. And the hyzer is wide open and super easy. You're like 90% sure that if you throw the hyzer, you'll get a 3 because you get the penalty for missing the Mando, and then you just make a putt to get a 3. Now it's your choice. Are you going to try to get a birdie with a slightly trickier shot, or are you going to throw the easy shot, take the stroke penalty, and take a 3?
Yeah, I feel like everybody's
really dumb, or might that work?
No, it's not dumb. The only issue I have with that, Simon, is I think a big. I like that in the sense of like you have to make a choice, right? Because a lot of times we don't have to make choices when we step on tees. Everyone just like gas. There's no thought process. So I like that aspect. The thing that is tricky with that aspect is how do you get a 4?
By missing your putt if you miss the Mando, or by messing up the turnover somehow.
So like, okay, so.
I mean, a 250-foot shot is still a 250-foot shot.
Can I add something to your hole? Why wouldn't you make hazard on both sides so it's like an island? You make hazards on both sides so that the turnover, if you don't hit it correctly, you're probably going out of bounds. So that it's a bit more risky as far as that. So you can take easy par, but if you go for the birdie, you bring bogey into play. So then you have 3 options. You know what I mean?
I think course design, I think after this discussion, boys, I think it's just freaking hard, man. I think it's freaking hard to make a good course.
Yes, it is.
I think it's just so hard because there's so many elements of where, you know, the one thing that I really would love to see, and again, I just don't know how we get there, is I want to see every single hole you step up to. If you play the hole perfectly, you get a birdie. If you play it well, you get a par. If you play it bad, you get a bogey or higher. And a lot of times we play holes that is just not the case. It's like either birdie or par. And like I mean, obviously, yes, there are times where you will miss a 15-footer and take a bogey, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about where it's like you're somehow forcing people to have to make a 45-footer or a 50-footer for par, or they just don't even they mess up their, this goes back to the value. They mess up their throws so bad that their best score now is a bogey versus
use
giving them a chance
use a hole
to
for a reference.
What do you mean?
So there's obviously a hole out there that plays like that. What hole is it?
That plays like what? You're either taking a par or birdie?
No. That a really good shot gets you a birdie, a decent shot gets you a par, and a bad shot gets you a bogey.
I mean, it'd be like USDGC hole 17 would be like the easy one right off the bat.
Yeah.
Right? Like a great shot, you're throwing it to 20 feet, you make the putt. A good shot, you're throwing to 45, 50 feet, you miss the putt. A bad shot, you're rethrowing.
So it sounds like stroke and distance is the answer here.
I mean, I don't know. I'm sure there's other holes. I'm sure there's other holes that as well.
I was thinking of like super tough par. I think that hole 2 at OTB was a really good hole. I thought that if you threw a really great tee shot, you got a birdie. If you threw a decent shot, you got a par. And if you threw a really bad shot, you were getting a bogey, probably. Right?
I agree. It was a good hole.
Yeah.
Simon, I want to ask you one more thing before you go, because you said you did watch some of the Beaver State Fling.
Yeah, I watched all of it.
Okay.
Live.
Live. Sick. Why is this not showing? Oh, this is the wrong thing. Okay.
FPO and MPO. I was streaming the whole thing.
How cool was it to watch? Sorry, Brody. I keep interrupting you tonight.
No,
I missed the ace. I missed the ace.
Oh, you did? Dang it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, there was. Let me just make sure I got this right. I think I do. Okay. All right. This is my point. Okay. Beaver State Fling. As a course, what were your thoughts on watching it?
Can
it just be like your quick overall assessment of like how entertaining it was, I guess?
I mean, I have the huge advantage that I've been there many times, so I know exactly what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
If I try to blend that out and act like I was watching without ever being there and really knowing what is where and like where they're actually trying to go, not great.
Okay. So the winner was 31 under Eagle, right? We had multiple people in the field that shot 29 over, 28, 23, 18, 17. I mean, we had multiple people that were 40 plus strokes off of Eagle. Okay. With that being said, because obviously silver event, we had a bunch of lower rated players, if you will, in the field. With that being said, hole 1, 10% of the field took bogeys. Hole 3, 6% of the field took bogeys. Hole 4, 6% of the field took bogeys. Hole 5, 6% of the field took bogeys. Hole 8, not a single person bogeyed. Hole 10, 5% took bogeys. Hole 14, 7% took bogeys. I mean, that's, I think at the end of the day, like that is a big issue with disc golf is we just have some holes that even if you put, people that, because I would say those numbers go drastically lower if this becomes an elite event and everyone's 1,000 rated and up. I mean, that I think is a huge problem is you're watching a course and you're just seeing, I don't know, to me, you're seeing birdies and pars. It makes it, I don't know.
Yeah, it's I think adding hazard and adding standstill areas will help. If the problem in disc golf is that a great shot and a pretty good shot are almost always equally good because putting is too easy. I mean, it's always been the issue. So
that and the green, I would say this too, Simon. If you threw a shot to 300 feet, how many times are you getting that up and down more than 275? If the basket was just in the middle of the field.
Probably same.
That's also kind of an issue, is like the difference of being 200 feet away from the basket and being 250 feet away from the basket, 275 feet away from the basket on majority of the greens we play is so small, because the shots that we are asking players to throw into these greens are too easy as well. I think that's also another thing, is like you can get away with putting being as easy as it is. A lot of these greens, you can throw 40 feet left of your target, 40 feet right of your target, 40 feet short of your target, and 40 feet long of your target and make the same score. I mean, that is a ginormous area.
I want to say one last thing about stroke and distance.
And then we'll let Simon go, because he's been a great guest so far to listen to our stuff this whole night.
It's already 10:12. Jesus.
I think this is my point with it. It's not the rule that I like. It's not the fact that people are going to get crazy penalized. Okay, let's forget all of that stuff. The one thing I do know that it makes people do is think. And yes. It makes people nervous. And I think that's the thing that we're missing. Putting, you said, and what made me realize this is when you said that putting was so easy. It is. So we'd have to change the basket completely. Okay, let's act like we can't do that. Then we have one thing to do, and that's to make throwing the disc harder. Now, this is fact. Hole 1, round 2, on any course, first round compared to second round, compared to third round, final round, it's always going to be harder. And hole 18, to play for a win, the final round's always going to be harder. Even if it's a 350 dead straight, perfect shot, it's always going to be harder because of what our mental does to us in that moment. It makes us think, it makes us nervous. I like stroke and distance because that would bring that to the forefront always. Everybody would always be worried, okay, I could lose the tournament on this hole. It would make you have to be mentally tough, and it would change the way everybody plays the game as far as that goes. And I say that with references to like the USDGC. For some reason, we always bring hole 17 up. And I think we can all agree that that's a good hole, right?
Yes.
And I think it's a good hole because of that, because of the nerves that it gives us and how tough of the shot it is. And then final round USDGC, in order to earn your title, I would hate if they got rid of that hole and then I won the tournament. Because it's like the stepping stone. You have to get past that hole to be a US champion. The reason why it's so difficult is because there's a chance you could take a 7 on an easy hole. It makes everybody think, it makes it nervous. And I think that's what we're missing in a lot of our shots in the game, is we don't have that on a lot of shots, only a couple around or final round.
That shot too I think that shot also, I would agree with you, Yuli, on the mental side. I think that is one thing we are lacking. I talked about it a little bit. A lot of these holes we play, it's just all gas. There is no decision making. That hole, when you step up to there, you got to think forehand or backhand. You got to think what the wind is doing. And then you got to think, do I want to try to throw this to 20 feet or do I want to try to throw this to 40 feet? And if you're indecisive at all, if you're having a hard time to like lock in on that decision, that's when I think a lot of times you throw OB.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that Yuli is right, that 17 is a great hole and it adds insane pressure, and it's a very important thing for a sport to have pressure and making smart decisions and being clutch in the right moment. Obviously, we need that, and I would be a huge fan of having a major championship with stroke and distance. I'm just saying, for like your general pro tour, you don't need every course to be, I can shoot 10 under, but I can just as easily shoot 10 over. Like that's
I love that take, actually. Yeah, that's a good point.
I would love variety in our major championships.
Yes.
Maybe some also in the pro tour, but I would love to see some majors that are played on different style courses and played with different OB rules, or just try some different things. I remember, I don't know how long it is ago, but maybe 6 or 7 years, USDGC did do a stroke and distance every hole.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a fiasco. It
was
people
one of my
were
favorite
blowing up.
It was one of my favorite tournaments I've ever played.
Simon, do you think that's because...
Was it 5-hour rounds?
It was a long round, but I remember it was the most focused I had ever been in a tournament, and it was the most scared that I had ever played. And I remember looking around and just watching people just absolutely crumble. I actually played good that year. It's funny, to your point, I came up to hole 18, and your point was, well, what if somebody throws a nice shot and it rolls out of bounds, or it hits something and rolls out of bounds? This particular year, I was on like the third or fourth card, and I played the round of my life with the stroke and distance, right? And I get to hole 18, and I throw a sidearm up the thing, and it rolled all the way back into the water. I threw it again, rolled all the way back in the water. And then I finally got one to sit down, and I ended up taking an 8, and I shot a 58 with the stroke and distance. So I do know what that feels like. But I also know that if I were to have chose to throw a backhand turnover, the likelihood of that happening would have been way less. And back to the point, dude, it was so fun to me to be able to play there and try to focus and out golf people rather than just throwing shots and trying to get birdies.
I think we need one tournament like that. That is just a mental battle, and if you suck, you really suck.
Yeah, I think that was Blue Ridge. I know both of you guys didn't play. That was
I played it.
one of the... Oh, well, Yuli played it. Yeah, me and Yuli played it. That was one of the more mentally exhausting tournaments I've played in, because there was very few holes where you could just take a break and throw a shot. But I know you said a lot of people blew up on that course. My thing is we're so used to playing courses where you have to shoot 10 under par, 12 under par every round to compete. I think some courses it's going to take people to realize wait a second, 4 under is actually a good score here. And then all of a sudden we might see people play holes differently, be more aggressive or be less aggressive on certain holes. And now all of a sudden we're seeing people actually golf and have different strategies going into it. To me, that's more fascinating than just all right, who's going to putt the best today and shoot 15 under.
Drew and I were talking yesterday, and he was in 20 something place, right? And then, he shot 11 under final round Beaver State Fling, and he got 16th or something. Wouldn't it be cool to actually play a great round of golf and beat a lot of people? Wouldn't it be cool if 10 under was actually really good instead of average?
That's what Blue Ridge was. I shot 9 under or something. I moved up the most spots since 2018 or something. I moved up 50 some spots.
That
because
happens
at that tournament, a couple under par was really good.
Yeah. That happens in traditional golf a lot. The 6th, 7th card goes out and shoots 62 and they win.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that doesn't happen. We're seeing more people win from the 2nd card. Ooh, wow.
Gannon almost did it on the 5th card at OTB though.
Yeah, he did. Windy day, and those last 3 holes had a lot of out of bounds.
Those last 3 holes are so good. Those last 3 holes are so good.
Statistic this last weekend was I was playing with Nathan Queen the final round. He shot a bogey-free 3 under. He shot bogey-free 3 unders every round.
Wow.
How funny is that? He went bogey-free for the whole tournament, shot 9 under, missed cash.
Have you guys ever had a par only tournament round?
No.
No? Okay. That would be kind of cool. Maybe on a hard course, maybe not on an easy course. That would probably not be that cool on an easy course, but all right. Simon, you got anything else? We've held you hostage here long enough with our takes.
Actually, I have something I would talk about, but I don't have to. If you want to move on,
you're fine. No, you're fine.
I know you always like to talk about pet peeves a bit, and I thought of one, and this one is the scoring system we're using, where we have to have PDGA live, then we have a UDisc official, then someone has to back up with a scorecard or another PDGA live or whatever. Like, that's one of the most annoying things to me, and I don't understand why the Pro Tour is like hammering onto that. Like, I think keeping score is one of the simplest things, and if you mess it up, you should be penalized. But they always say like, "Oh, we don't want to see anyone get their score wrong," and I'm like, if you cannot add up 18 times 3, then you deserve to be last place. Like, come on. Like,
what's
I
your?
don't want to have my phone out every freaking round. We have a UDisc guy. We don't need PDGA live. And then we have a paper scorecard, and at the UCGC, everyone has to freaking do it. Like, give us a break. Like, one guy does score, and then he gives it to the next player after 5 holes, and we're done.
What's your feeling on playing like a 250-foot hole? Everyone parks it and taps it in, and then you get to the next hole, and they're like, "All right, Yuli, what'd you get?" And you're like 2, and they're like, "Simon, what'd you get?" And you're like 2. Like, bro, we all just tapped in. We all got 2s. I don't. I get it. It is the rules. So I get the people that want to abide by the rules. You're supposed to actually verbally apparently get everyone's score that way. This is where I'm at, Simon, on that, because I'm with you. The whole scoring system is a crazy thing to me. You might disagree with me. I like if us 3 were playing in a threesome, I want to give you my scorecard. It has my name at it on the top. You give your score to Yuli. Yuli gives his scorecard to me. I keep Yuli's score on the top, my score on the bottom. You keep my score on the top, your score on the bottom. And then it's really easy to keep your score and one other person's score. And then when you get to the very end of the tournament, you rip off your score on the bottom, you line them up with the person that took your score, and you can just easily see 3, 4, 4. Yep. And then add it up, and we're done. And I don't ever have to ask what anyone got. Now, obviously, on a crazy hole where Yuli throws OB 4 times or whatever, and I'm like, dude, what'd you get? Did you get a 7 or an 8 there? That makes sense. But if I'm just keeping my score and Yuli's score, I should never have to like ask. And then I think pace of play, that actually could save like 5 or 10 minutes a round from people having to wait. Because like we do that right now. If Simon, if you're doing the score and you're slow to get to the tee pad, we're all standing there waiting for you to get there. And then you have to get your phone out. Then you have to open the app. Like, I'm with you on. We need to figure out a better way of doing a score
from a bad scorecard.
No, I've never been. No,
I have been. Yes,
I have been. Not from me adding it up, from somebody else.
Before or after you accepted your trophy, Simon? Has that ever happened? I really want that to happen. I really want that to be like, and your MVP Open winner, Simon Lizotte. And then
Didn't
it turns
that happen
out
to Will Schuster once?
I think so. It's happened before several times. In
it's
smaller
happened
tournaments.
and they haven't changed it then? See, I was hoping that would happen so they would change the award ceremony situation.
No,
because you technically have not won the tournament yet when you accept the trophy.
Correct.
And it's also very awkward for a lot of players because they don't know what to do in that situation. You're great. You figured it out. You're like, I'm just going to sprint around and give everyone high fives.
I do that. You know why I do that? Because it's so awkward for me just to stand there and everyone's staring at me, and I'm just like, I don't know what the hell to do. I'm just going to run around. Yeah, that's most of my life. I just try to not be in the awkward situation.
Well, they put players in a weird spot when they like, as soon as you tap out, they just like put a mic sometimes in front of you and hand you a trophy, and you're just like, I don't even have time to process this. My scorecard's not even done. I haven't even shook hands with the people I've played with. That's another pet peeve of me. I think we need to do the award ceremony differently.
I also hope one day we can play in threesomes. I think that would be awesome. 2-hour rounds, just get out in and out, and then we would have more time to sign autographs and be happy. We're not coming off of a 4-hour waiting on every tee pad round, and we just want to go eat and go to bed, and then we have to sign this for 30 minutes. Ooh.
Do you think that actually would help live coverage? We talked about this a little bit before you came on. If our rounds weren't 4 hours on live and they were 2 hours.
I really think so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You would
I
think,
think
right? Like there'd be so much less downtime.
I mean,
I feel
that's
like
a big
the whole
reason
thing
why.
would be more dynamic.
Yeah. I feel like that's everybody's biggest problem, is why the post product is so loved, is because people don't have time to watch it for 4 hours. They can, or 6 hours. They can just watch it the next day in 40 minutes and
I would
it's
say
over.
too, I would say another issue with live, since we're just throwing a bunch of issues out. Another issue with live that we have right now is the fact that we have such limited camera. We're just showing a lot of shots of people that are not even in the tournament and their shots aren't good. If we had more cameras, we could pretty much drop. Let's say we stick with the foursome, right? If someone has just blown up and they're out of it, we can drop that person from coverage. You never see that person really on live, and we can start showing other people that are in the tournament that are making moves or playing well. Like that's a huge thing as well, is we're kind of locked in to, if you're on lead card and you play bad, you kind of just have to suck it up because all your shots are going to be on live. And I think that takes away from it, right? Like if you and Yuli are in a battle back and forth, shot for shot, and then all of a sudden Brody's over here and I'm 10 over par, and I'm like that, I feel like that kind of kills the vibe a little bit. Like you guys both pure your shots, and then here comes Brody stepping up to the tee pad, and I hit first available, and watching it live, you're just kind of like, okay. I don't know. I could be wrong there. People might want to see that, but maybe not.
What do you guys think about that the first round featured cards are like the same 10 guys just rotated around? Isn't
I think
that
you have
super
to.
unfair and like really annoying?
I think you
It's
have
super
to do
unfair,
it.
really annoying. What about this idea? We start as foursomes, and then we cut, and then we're twosomes.
Don't get off of Simon's eye. I want to talk about Simon's thing first, because there are a lot of pros that will push back on that. And, you know, I think you have to do that though, Simon, because if you put together, if you start moving people around, like people aren't going to tune in, right? Like, isn't that the problem? If you're playing in a tournament and we can't see you play the first round, like that's an issue.
I guess it comes back to the not enough camera issue.
Yeah, like if you're playing on the sixth card, the last sixth to last card, I guess, on the first day, and you start playing really well, but not well enough to get a camera to yourself, no one's going to see any of your shots.
Do you think it's really important that the last tee time is the featured card, or could it all be scrambled and then you just choose whatever's the hottest card that is random, then you follow those guys?
I think the reason right now, the only reason I think the final times are featured cards are because they're filming FPO as well. I think if they didn't have to film FPO, I think you could randomly have tee times go out. You could still like say, hey, we want these people to play together, because I think that is still important, right? Like I think it is still important to put certain players together, but their tee times should be random. I don't think I think that's the unfair part right now, is
Exactly.
if you're one of the top players, you essentially never have to play with backups because you're going to play slow and you're the last card out. You don't have anyone behind you. And you have all day, whatever. There's a bunch of reasons that people have for why it's unfair, but I would say that would be the big one is, I don't know. But then the problem there too, though, Simon, is you would have to then put both the featured cards next to each other. 'Cause again, the camera thing, right? So and gosh, it's so hard with the camera, because now what are you going to do? Is live coverage now just from 11 in the morning let's say live coverage now is like 10:30 in the morning until 1? Like, what is that what we're doing? Because you're not going to, like, your live part would just be for your feature cards. So you just have all these people on the course. You're like, all right, guys, we'll see you next week, or we'll see you tomorrow. We'll let you know who's in the lead.
Yeah, those are all good points. And I guess there's no other way to really do it. I don't know. One part of me feels a bit frustrated and sad for everyone who never gets on these featured cards,
You shouldn't.
I mean,
though.
put two big names or three, and then one random guy every now and then. Like the random guys just never show up. I wish they would rotate someone, but I always round one. I play with the same 5 people every tournament.
And then you play with them for the rest of the tournament too.
No, and then I play with Yuli round 2. We haven't played together all year, Yuli. What's going on? Come on.
I think we know what's going on. Hand up, my fault.
I feel like though, Simon, for the people that are like upset, that make you feel like bad for getting the feature cards, I think you just have to remind yourself that like the value that you bring towards disc golf, towards tournaments, towards ticket sales, towards Disc Golf Network subscribers is vastly outweighs their value. And for them to be able to survive on tour, a lot of it has to do with how well the best players play. Like you becoming bigger and getting more fans and more people playing disc golf benefits everyone on tour.
Yep.
And so like, that's something that we can't miss. Like we need to have Eagle, Simon, Calvin, Paul. We need to have Ricky. We need to have all these people in the tournaments. More people are going to watch, hopefully more bigger purses, like all those things kind of happen. So that's where I just say like, it's tough because I know you want to be fair and you want to be like, this feels bad. You got to look at the disc golf as like a product. And right now you're one of, if not the most valuable product, and to put you somewhere where no one can see you just doesn't make any sense. And if you're a pro on tour and you don't understand that, then you're an idiot.
Well, no,
I hate to say it. No one cares. No one cares. No one cares to watch you play right now. I'm sorry. It is what it is.
That's a great point because you do hear a lot of people complain about it. And it's like, if it didn't go this way, then you wouldn't be on tour probably. There would be no money for you to do this if it didn't work the way that it's working right now. And
to a certain standpoint.
And you always have one option in your control. You could play really good all the time and make the featured card eventually.
And then you can be one of those people. Like
yep.
Then you are now those people. And we've seen it. We've seen certain players that are like Aaron Gossage is a perfect example. A couple years ago at OTB Open when he popped off, no one had any idea who he was. If he would have been thrown on a lead card the next day, people would have been like, why the heck is he on the lead card? Or sorry, the next tournament, people would be like, why is he on the lead card? He had one good finish. Who cares? Now, if Gossage gets on a lead card, no one is questioning it. And then there's a bunch of people that are really excited to watch him play. So like that's, if you're upset that you don't ever get on lead cards, feature cards, play better. Simple as that. Play better, make people want to watch you, and then you will be on the feature cards. It's not the Disc Golf Pro Tour's job to make people want to watch you play.
Yeah, and those are all great points, and it's just the way it is. It's not ideal, but it's what we have to do right now. Yep, that's where we're at. All right, Simon, we'll let you go. Thank you so much for sticking around as long as possible. As always, you're always welcome. So whenever you got another hot take that you want to fire off, just let me know. We'll get you back on the show. All right, sounds good. Are you playing Seattle this week?
Yes.
Yeah, we both are up there. Cascade Challenge, baby. All right, good luck. And I'll see you next week in Portland. I can't wait. Title defense try number 2. Number 1 failed miserably. All right. Well, safe travels, brother. We'll see you in Portland. All right.
Later, Simon.
All right. Simon Lizotte, ladies and gentlemen. Always fun to talk with him. I thought that was going to be like a 15-minute segment, Yuli. I should have known better. All right. Let's jump in real quick to MPO, because I do have some things to talk about here. First one, Beaver State Fling, MPO. Eagle is back in the winner's circle after missing cash, Yuli. He missed cash at OTB, a course that you would think would suit his game very well. Comes to Beaver State Fling, takes it down, and essentially never really looked back. He ended up shooting 57, 57, 56, takes it 3 strokes over Andrew Presnell and Calvin Heimberg. There was a little bit of a push there towards the end with Calvin, but he pretty much had it in hand. The first thing I want to talk about is just the fact of how on a course like this, he was able to pretty much just like overpower it in a way. He starts off with a couple of those like 400-foot par threes at the beginning of the round. He throws mids on them. He's just lacing mids, getting birdies. Then on hole 5, which I thought a roller was an option, I didn't think you could get to where he got. He threw a massive, like, overstable distance driver roller on hole 5 around the tree, got all the way up into circle 2, ended up missing the putt for eagle, but put himself in a spot. I mean, he's just getting birdies on the front 9 very easily on some holes that are tough. Hole 9, one of the tougher par 3s on the course. He throws this like overstable fairway driver on this crazy flex line, parks it, birdie. He's 7 under through 9. I mean, he's shredding at this point. Then on a course 2 that doesn't really require that many forehands, one of the holes that does require forehand is hole 14. It's got that cool little green up on the right-hand side.
Yeah.
He throws a pretty nice forehand in there. On the final round, he throws, it's still his forehand. It still looks funky to me. It's not his old forehand. And I don't know if we'll ever see Simon's old forehand.
Yeah, it's really soft. It's soft, but it's still far.
Yeah,
but it's like this soft little throw where there's not a lot of speed that goes into it, but it's crazy how far it still goes.
If you just watched it, you didn't watch his like where the disc went, and you just watched him throw it, and you didn't know who Eagle was, you would think like he was a newer player. That's kind of what it looks like. It doesn't look like it doesn't look like someone that has a great forehand. It doesn't. Like it still looks like he's like it looks like he's protecting his shoulder or something. He's found a way. He's found a way to throw it without it causing problems. And I really want him to come on tonight because I wanted to hear kind of his thought process of like what it is he's going through with his forehand. Because is he actually trying to work to get back to where he was, or is he just shown and proven to himself like my game where it's at right now is good enough?
I heard this, and I was walking, and he said something to somebody next to me, and it was something about I'm gonna have surgery at the end of the year.
Wow. Okay.
I don't know what that means, but I heard that.
Okay. Yeah.
So maybe he's at the point where he's just like, it doesn't matter. I'm just gonna throw him because
it looks like he's throwing hurt. I guess that's the best way of saying it. It looks like he is like powering through an injury when he throws. And I want to know how hurt he is. Does he have pain? Is he icing afterwards? These are all things that I was going to ask him. But regardless, I mean, he's still able to throw really good forehand shots 300 feet away. And that's pretty much all you really needed on this hole. Did you see his shot on hole 15?
Yes.
Is that potentially the craziest shot that we'll see on tour? Just as far as this, like the optics of it, is that the craziest? I mean,
he did it back-to-back rounds. He landed in a similar spot the previous round. It was just like
for those that didn't see it, and those that are listening, essentially what he did is go out to a field, aim 400 feet in the air at like a 70-degree angle and throw a backhand as hard as you possibly can. Do it twice and see how close your disc land from one another. He was able to throw that shot like accurately somehow. I don't know. It was a wild looking shot. It put him in actually a really good spot, and then he like biffed his upshot, which was unfortunate. He didn't throw a great sidearm. Kind of yanked it over to the left, and so he ended up taking a par, but he was pretty much in the best spot I saw anyone all week. So then he's got at this point, he's got a decent lead, a couple strokes, and he's heading now into hole 16 or hole 16, hole 15 was really where the tournament was won and lost. Calvin ended up taking a bogey on hole 15, and then the whole card ended up birding 16, and Calvin took a par. So at that point in time, the tournament was pretty much out of it. Like Eagle played pretty smart. He played for par on 17. He wanted nothing to do with having to deal with like throwing a bad upshot on that island hole. Took his par, made the easy birdie on 18, back in the winner's circle. Really just like start to finish, just kind of methodically just shredded the course. And it was impressive. It was impressive. Now, before we go down the leaderboard, I want to talk about this because this shocked me. I was looking on here and then I just looked over and I saw $3,000 to the winner. And I actually, without knowing that Drew had tweeted anything about this, Silas can pull up my tweet. I tweeted out saying, let me see here what I say. I said, was surprised to see the payout for winning the Beaver State Fling was $3,000. The tournament felt a lot bigger than that. There is still a huge difference in sponsorship money versus tournament earnings. Now, Drew had a similar take. He kind of went a little bit different route on it. Drew ended up saying, Beaver State Fling factual stats, which I think is, first off, factual stats is maybe something that I want to use in the future, because I guess if you just say Beaver State Fling stats, they might be incorrect. 2013, first place 3,600, 79 players. 2023, first place $3,000, 112 players, a difference of $600. Even though there was 33 more players, and he kind of goes on to talk about there was more players, 10 years, inflation, all these things. What are your thoughts on this, man? What are your thoughts on these purses? Do we have an issue here? Do we have a problem here? $3,000 for an event like this?
I do have a problem with it, and this is my problem with Silver Series in general. Is I don't think we should be getting points for them. I think that we should have the Elite Series, and we should only have Elite Series tournaments as far as the Pro Tour goes. I think this because I think this is a great opportunity to have a separate kind of tour for other players to earn tour cards to be able to get onto the Elite Series tour. And then the payouts would make sense because it's a separate tour. It'd be like our Corn Ferry tour compared to the Elite Series tour. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I know going into a Silver Series that it's going to be a small payout. It just is going to be a small payout. And if it's not, then great. But for the most part, that's what you get. That's what you're signing up for. Now, if I see that at an Elite Series, we got a big problem because that shouldn't be happening. But it's a Silver Series, and the facts that the competition is getting so crazy that everybody's playing every single weekend to play these Silver Series to try to get the points.
Yeah.
It's just getting to me a little, it's not ridiculous because it's coming from me who I played 50 tournaments every year for the longest time, or 40 tournaments. Mm-hmm. And so I get wanting to play every single weekend. But I think disc golf's gotten to the point where this could be a great spot for it. Silver Series, Pro, we don't play them. Elite Series, those are the ones we play. What do you think about that?
I don't hate that. I don't hate that idea. I think also doing away with them would also, I think, benefit the Pro Tour focusing on less events to really try to make those events better. I don't think Portland needs to have 3 events within, a couple hours of them. Beaver State Fling is only like 40 minutes outside of where the Portland Open's going to be. And where we are this week is only like a 2-hour drive north of Portland. So I think sometimes when you're trying to fundraise and get money into these tournaments, if I'm a company, why am I putting money into Beaver State Fling or Cascade Challenge when I know the Portland Open is coming, right? So I think that's tough. And I'll leave it at this. This is where we're at right now. This is what it feels like, and I don't like the feeling. And again, this is not, I'm not really, I don't really care personally whether I make $3,000 or $300 at tournaments. This is more just like the growth of the sport and hopefully getting more players out on tour that can actually make a living and not having it so focused on sponsorships and more focused on, if you're not sponsored, you can come out and play well and like make a decent living on tour. That's what I'm like striving for right now with how it's set up. This tournament, $20,000 of the purse was from entry fees from players. We or our sponsors, if you have your sponsors paying your entry fees, threw that money into the pot. Then $10,000 roughly was added to the purse from outside cash. So whether that be the title sponsor or other sponsors, that's what it is. What this feels like right now, and I made this analogy earlier, so if you've heard it before, I'm sorry, but what this feels like right now is I'm calling you up, Yuli, and I'm saying, hey, man, I'm going to have a bunch of people over for poker. It's $100 buy-in, just you in. And you're like, yeah, you and, 10 of our buddies all come over to my house. We all throw our $100 in and we're like, all right, that's what we're playing for. And then my parents are like, hey kids, don't worry. We just ordered pizza for everyone. Like they are the Disc Golf Pro Tour. My parents are the Disc Golf Pro Tour ordering pizza for everyone. And we are basically playing for our money. That's a lot of times what it feels like, because the majority of the money in these tournaments are coming from the players themselves with the entry fees. And I know a lot of people are like, well, why are you guys paying entry fees? Like, you guys shouldn't be paying, if you're pros, you shouldn't be paying entry fees to play on tour. I agree with that. The problem is, if you take entry fees away, Eagle doesn't win $3,000. Eagle now wins $1,000, and that's where we're at right now. And I think sometimes it's tough to realize, like, maybe disc golf, maybe the pro level disc golf right now is like so much smaller than we actually think it is. Because we're playing for $3,000. Like Eagle might not be a good example because I don't know exactly what his salary that he makes is something, but like Ricky's in the field. Ricky's making $1 million a year and he got 11th place and made $786. Like, what are we doing here? Right?
Yeah, I think it's a little bigger than that. I think part of the lure is to get on coverage. To be able to take us and people be able to watch us. That's part of the lure of this. And so you're right. Unfortunately, a lot of us could give, I won't say the word, to what about whatever money you make. Unless it's a crazy significant amount of money, there's probably about 20 people where that really doesn't affect you that much. Mm-hmm. But then there's another portion where it does affect them. You know what I mean? And so
those are the people that we're fighting for, essentially, is like,
right.
How are some of these people on tour? You get, we get that question a lot on social media.
And that's why I feel like we need to be focused on the Elite Series, making sure that that's a place where if you get to that spot, you're going to be financially stable. Mm-hmm. And these other tournaments are a place to where the dream is you can get to this spot. So it's a fight, right? You go to this tournament and it's like, it's a small payout, but if you win the tournament or you get top 5, the payout could be massive in the future by getting to the elite level. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's where I would love to see the game get to where you're right. The Pro Tour doesn't focus on them completely, not them, but that tournament completely. And it's focused on getting as much money into the Elite Series tour as possible while having this other spot for people to go to make a little money to keep going on that tour with the dream of getting to the spot where it's like if I get there, I make a couple cuts, maybe I make 50 grand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like I've had a pretty bad season this year so far. I've played 10 tournaments. I've cashed at all 10. I've cashed at 7. Yes, I've cashed 7 of my 10 tournaments I've played. And obviously I realize my finishes haven't been great. I've made $3,618 since February. Like if I didn't have sponsors, right? And like this was what I was doing for a livelihood. Like this is just not this right now. Disc golf is not a sustainable job for a lot of people. It's not.
And it's crazy because I was talking to somebody, a really good player, and I'm not going to say who it is, but we were talking about Europe, and I'm like, he was like, yeah, I want to go to Europe someday, and I'm like, oh, you're not going to Europe? And he's like, there's no way I could afford to go to Europe. And that like took me back a second because I had to realize like, oh my gosh, like this guy is like right now way better than I am. And he's not able to afford to go to Europe. It made me like think like, I want to help this guy get to Europe. Like he deserves to be in Europe type thing. You know what I mean? Because that's crazy.
There are some top 30 players in the world right now that if they're not smart with their money, if they, retire, if disc golf doesn't change and they retire, they're done playing disc golf in however many years, they actually might not be able to be done with playing disc golf in however many years, right? Like the money is just not, I don't think outside of sponsorships, the money is just not what you would think it would be right now. And again, I don't know. It just shocked me to see $3,000. That's all. All right. We got a couple questions I want to run through before we wrap up tonight. The first one, Yuli, I just want to get your thoughts. Grip Locked had a debate on this. Hunter and Trevor were kind of going back and forth. I'm curious to see what you have to say about it. Being someone that's been in disc golf as long as you have and has played in all over the United States, what coast are you taking for better disc golfers? Are you taking East Coast or West Coast? Who has the better disc golfers?
I would say it depends on the style of course.
Oh, okay.
I would say I would take East Coast golfers as far as woodsy players, and I would take West Coast golfers as far as like traditional golf courses.
Okay. So if you had 1,000 rated golfer on both sides, like if you had 1,000 rated golfer that played in the woods on the East Coast and 1,000 rated golfer that played in the woods on the West Coast, you're taking the East Coast 1,000 rated player?
Depends on the course is what I'm saying, that they're playing.
Oh, I'm saying if they're playing on a wooded course.
Yeah, I'll take East Coast.
Okay. All right. There you have it. East Coast woods better than West Coast woods. If you have issues with that, you can find Yuli on his Twitter account and blast him there.
Well, I think you're going to find most of your better golfers on the West Coast in California. Arizona has a few good golfers. Those are the first ones that come to mind. And the style of courses like in California, once you go up to like, let's say, Grass Valley, California, up there in Tahoe, Santa Cruz a little bit, it's more woodsy, but for the most part, it's more wide open, like Huntington Beach and different things, different spots like that, to where it's not as woodsy. There's woods, but it's a different style than going up to like you go to Massachusetts, and most of the courses are going to be heavily wooded.
Super technical.
Yeah.
Okay, Drew on Twitter asks, is there a reason pro disc golfers don't get more than one sponsor? For example, Discraft and Jimmy John's or something. Is there some kind of exclusivity clause with everyone, or is the market pool not big enough yet? Would love to see a disc golfer sponsored by Barstool. So I think there are disc golfers out there that are sponsored by multiple companies. The issue right now is the only companies that are really willing to throw money towards disc golfers are disc golf companies. So we are super limited. Yuli, for example, you're sponsored by Discraft. You're also sponsored by Ledgestone. You're also sponsored by Zuka and Bushnell, right? All of those companies have ties into disc golf in some way. Bushnell probably being the newest one, but they do now kind of have like a disc golf brand to their company. With that being said, like there's just not that many outside companies that are willing to put money into disc golf. And so unless you're like at the elite level, or you're like someone like Yuli that has the influence that he has, you're just not going to get multiple, sponsorships. You're not going to get a Zuka cart or a grip or a Squatch bag to want to sponsor you. So what you're going to end up doing is you're going to sign a contract with a manufacturer that's going to basically tell you, you're going to wear our apparel, you're going to use our bag, and you're going to use our discs. And you don't really have any other contracts coming in. So it's not like you're going to be like, oh, what the heck is going on? All right, we're going to skip that one because we already talked about Ali Smith. Okay, this is a good one. Yuli, what are you taking? I'm going to kind of rephrase this question. This was from Nicholas Schaefer. I'm just going to rephrase it this way. What are you going to take if you want to try to win a tournament? Are you taking number one, or I'll say A, are you taking 100% C1X and C2X or C2 putting, so you don't miss a putt inside of 66 feet? Are you taking B, 50% of the holes you park, or are you taking C, 100% fairway hits?
So which one is likely going to win you a Pro Tour tournament?
Yeah, like which one would you take going into a tournament? Like which of those three stats would you be like, sign me up for that one?
One.
Not missing a putt inside of 66 feet.
And it's just for the pure fact of not missing a putt from circle 2. Circle 1, not even that big a deal. Circle 2, I find myself at a lot.
All right. I think obviously that might be a little bit on the course. I think one wins you most of the time, but I could see how maybe like a 3 and a 2 might come into play on a course that has like a crazy amount of OB.
Yeah.
Of where you could lose a lot of shots to the field OB. All right, Jimmy Ray. Do you think the FPO is being subsidized from the MPO? If so, what's your opinion? So is essentially the MPO is MPO essentially the NBA, and is FPO the WNBA? Is the MPO paying the FPO? And if you want to hold off, and I'll go first, I think the right answer here is I think the Disc Golf Pro Tour has taken the stance that MPO and FPO is one product. I don't think they look at them as two separate products. I think they look at them as one product. They sell them. They sell their ad space as one product. They don't say, hey, you can throw your ads on MPO, but not on FPO. They're doing everything as one product. If you buy tickets to the event, you get to watch FPO and MPO. You don't have to buy separate tickets. Everything is thrown in as one product. I think it's fair to say, just based off the numbers on like YouTube videos and stuff like that, more people are paying attention to the MPO side. But I think the FPO side brings a very good value as well. The only issue I think moving forward is going to be in the payouts. And the only thing I could see is if one side, FPO or MPO, because it could happen on either, if one side drastically gets way more popular than the other side, but they're bringing in the same amount of money, they're getting the same amount of money on their payouts, I think that could pose a problem. I don't think necessarily it's there right now, because there are a lot of people out watching FPO at these tournaments. So,
no, I think it's definitely, like you're saying, it's one product as far as what they're trying to make it. But as far as what I would think that the public would think, it would be the opposite, that it would be they're separate things. And so maybe that's something they should work on with their marketing crew. Because I would be willing to bet that most people are like, oh no, there's the MPO and then there's the FPO side, and it's not one thing. As far as the payouts, eventually that's going to change as disc golf grows. Eventually there has to be a line drawn to where they have their own tour and we have our own tour, and that would be the best case scenario for everybody, because if it gets to that point, that means both sides have grown to be able to flourish by themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when that happens, I don't know what the Pro Tour is going to do.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have no idea, but the time will come to where that happens. I believe that.
I don't, with the fact of like the FPO using all the same resources that the MPO are, this would be a good Jeff Spring question. I don't know how much money would be saved outside of the money that we are currently pumping into the FPO for like added cash. Outside of that money, I don't really know, not having FPO play in a tournament, how much money that saves the Pro Tour. Because we're all basically using the same stuff.
Yeah, I don't think they would save any money per se. I feel like they'd lose money, right?
I think people think that, though. I think people think the Pro Tour spends money on the FPO, when in fact I think they just spend money and the MPO and FPO both use it.
Yeah.
I don't think they're really necessarily spending money that only the FPO is using.
No, I mean a little bit here and there for like making new tee signs for tee pads and things like that, having to have extra baskets for practice, and I feel like that there's a little bit, but it's not significant.
I don't think it'd be something that we would notice a big difference. I think the big difference is literally just in the cash, the added cash. Yeah. All right, a few more questions here. We've got one from Joe. Should more disc makers like Discraft and Innova allow their players to use other companies' bags like Atlas and Squatch? Or will companies go the Prodigy route to where they have to use the bag of the disc sponsor? I think, unless you have something else to say about this, I think this kind of goes back to what we kind of mentioned a little bit. It depends on who you are as a player. I think if you are a big enough player to where you can get an actual bag company outside of the disc manufacturer to sponsor you, I think either at that point, the manufacturer, the disc manufacturer would have to match or pay more for you to use their bag than the bag company, right? You agree with that, Yuli?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Pretty cut and dry. Last one. This is a good one. This is from Glory Man United. What's the etiquette for spectators and clearly OB discs? Can a spectator help by grabbing the disc? Okay, yeah. Speak some knowledge here. Speak some knowledge.
It's a big no-no. So if you throw it into the spectator area, there are times where somebody will grab it because it's clearly OB and then bring it to you. A spectator should never touch a disc, even if it goes into the water, and this goes for spotters as well. A spectator or a spotter should never touch your disc ever, unless you ask them to, or unless they ask, hey, do you need this? And then you can be like, yes, okay, yeah, I'll take that. Because a lot of times, even if it's a foot off, I want to see where I landed and make sure that it's out of bounds. I need to see that with my eyes. If you pick it up, then I'm like, well, does this person even know like where it was? And then it's just this big old thing. So
good,
yeah, just don't touch. Just
don't
touch stuff that's not yours.
Don't touch. It is crazy though. Like, I think some parents don't raise their kids that way. Like, I was definitely raised like, if it's not yours, don't touch it. There's been times where I've played like disc golf, or I've been like on a field doing like practicing on a field, like soccer field, and there's like kids will just like walk up and like pick up one of my discs and just like freaking chuck it, and I'm like, dude, I would be terrified as a kid to ever do so. Some of these kids just don't care. They just don't care. I'd be so scared to ever do something like that. Oh, tea times are up, by the way. Nice. Okay. We are going to talk about your dominant performance last week, Yuli. Thanks. We haven't given Steez Nerd a shout out recently. So shout out to Steez Nerd for hooking us up. And if you guys are still watching this, real quick, we got over 1,000 people still watching this. Do us a favor. Click the like button right now. Let's get the likes up on this video. That helps these videos tremendously. So make sure you drop a like, and then make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. And then follow all of our new accounts. It's Tour Life Pod or Tour Life Podcast. It's all in the description. We appreciate it. But let's get the likes up real quick. Drop some likes. All right. Yuli, absolute dominant performance last week. Picking Eagle, 5 points. Picking Gannon, 3 points. I went over. I went straight dud mode. Didn't get a single point. And you with that, what am I trying to say? You have gained a massive lead, 5-point lead over me, 37-32, going into the Cascade Challenge, which real quick, for those that haven't played, you want to describe this course real quick? Because you've played out here a few times, right?
Yeah.
What should people be expecting this week?
So it's a woodsy track, traditional fairway. So it's not like crazy tight. They're well manicured fairways, few trees in the middle here and there, but you're going to see a lot of 320 foot to 360 foot par threes, a few really tight par fours that are around 700 feet and a 900 footer out there. So a couple holes are in the wide open and you are throwing into the woods, and a couple holes you're in the woods throwing out to the wide open, just a couple, but for the most part it's a very woodsy track, more of a traditional golf course from back in the day to where it's a lot of par threes.
If you can hit the first gap, because a lot of these holes have like a main first gap, if you can hit this first gap, you will see double digits. There will be people shooting double digits out there.
Yeah.
If you aren't hitting the first gap,
you're done. So
have fun. This is a course that doesn't need a lot of OB in the woods. The rough is brutal. The way the holes are shaped are tough. If you like to scramble, it's a really, really fun course to play because you get so many opportunities to throw like really fun shots. So, all right. I think, what we should do moving forward, Yuli? I think whoever is not in first, whoever's not in first goes first.
Yeah.
Is that what we want to do?
Yeah.
Whoever's not in first goes first. Okay. I am going to take, gosh, there are some forehands out here. You have to throw some forehands. I'm going to take first pick. You know what? Give it to me. Give me Richard Wysocki.
Good pick. I'm taking. Oh wait, you picked.
Yeah.
You picked Isaac last week.
Yeah, I kind of blocked him for this tournament without knowing it. He would have been a good pick for this week.
I'm picking Nicholas Antala.
Good pick. Has shown really good signs inside at some wood courses as well. Almost won the tour championship, I believe, last year at a very Nevins was a very wooded course.
Mm-hmm.
All right, give me.
Wait, I go again, right?
You do go again. Good. I'm glad I didn't tell you my pick. That would have hurt me, my soul.
I'll take Conrad.
James Conrad. Okay. I'm going Wood Shredder. That is going to be wait, who do I want to go right now? Yeah, I'm going to go Wood Shredder. I'm going Wood Shredder, Alden Harris.
Mm-hmm.
And for my last pick, I am going to go. Oh my gosh, who do I want to take here? Oh, is he going to play good? No, I don't think so. You know what? Coming off of a very good second place finish, give me Andrew Presnell.
And I'm going to take. He hasn't been playing particularly well this year, but a lot of sidearms out there. I'm going with Andrew Marweed. So Battle of the Andrews.
Marwinator. All right, there you have it. Let us know what you guys think of our picks. Who did the better job moving forward? I think we nailed everything. Yuli, was there anything we missed?
No.
Okay. We dot our I's and crossed our T's this episode. As always, guys, we really appreciate all the support you have shown and given us. Make sure you go follow us on all those new social media accounts on the Tour Life podcast. Thank you to our guest, Simon. We wanted to try to get Jennifer Allen on tonight. We wanted to try to get Eagle on. Wasn't able, unfortunately, they weren't able to come on. But yeah, we'll keep pressing forward, try to get some more interesting people on here to talk to. And if that's it, we appreciate everything. We'll see you guys next week.
See you, Brody.
Later.